Chapter 985. The humans who wanted to leave Sea Return City suddenly realized that the path out of the city was blocked by dimensional creatures. The Seven Seas Dragon King, who was like a fiend celestial, led a large number of dimensional creatures to block their way out. There were tide-like dimensional creatures everywhere, surrounding the entire Sea Return City. It was almost impossible to escape. I regret it. Old Master Hui was extremely regretful. He knew that there might be danger, but he never expected the entire city to be destroyed. If he had listened to his grandson, Hui Haifeng, and hardened his heart to abandon his family business and leave Sea Return City, he wouldn't have ended up in this state. The only consolation was that the Hui family had already sent some of their children to study elsewhere in advance. Although they said it was to study, it was actually to protect them. It could be considered a backup plan. If something really happened to Sea Return City, the Hui family wouldn't be wiped out. What was hateful was that because of Wang Mingyuan, Hui Haifeng had taken a leave of absence from school and returned home. The Hui family's most promising young man had to be buried with the family. Thinking of Hui Haifeng, old Master Hui looked around, but he didn't see him. He couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Hui Haifeng had long expected a huge change. Perhaps he had already left Sea Return. Just as old Master Hui was rejoicing, he realized that Hui Haifeng and a young man were charging over from the other side. The young man was carrying a girl who looked about 1 or 2 years old. "Ah Feng, you already expected such a thing to happen. Why aren't you leaving?" Old Master Hui was angry and anxious when he saw Hui Haifeng charge over. "The Hui family is here. How can I leave alone? I have some things here that will be useful to those dimensional creatures. Just rub some on your body. There's too little time. I've only figured out this little use," Hui Haifeng said as he poured some powder from a bottle and distributed it to old Master Hui and company. "Li Xian, distribute it to the others." Hui Haifeng gave a bottle to Li Xian. Li Xian responded and brought 2 ice silkworms over. Wherever the ice silkworms passed, they froze the dimensional creatures. Li Xian wasn't as gentle as Hui Haifeng. He scattered the powder on the people of Sea Return City. After the powder that resembled gold powder touched the humans, the dimensional creatures seemed to treat them as their own kind and stopped attacking them. Everyone was pleasantly surprised. There were dimensional creatures everywhere like a tidal wave. They originally thought that there was no hope, but they never expected the divine soldiers to descend from the heavens, giving them a chance to turn the tide in a situation of certain death. Soon, the people from Sea Return City were smeared with the golden powder. Large numbers of dimensional creatures passed by them. At most, they sniffed them and didn't attack them. It was the same for those who were injured and mutated. They didn't care about those who were smeared with gold powder. Instantly, the huge Sea Return City was surrounded by countless dimensional creatures, but no battles happened. Everyone walked slowly. "Don't worry." Hui Haifeng breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that the golden powder was effective. The time he had been given was just too short. He didn't have the time to do more research. However, he accidentally discovered that once one was stained with this special element, the dimensional creatures would treat the humans who were stained with the golden powder as their own kind and not attack them again. Everyone followed Hui Haifeng and silently traversed the sea of monsters. If it was only these monsters, Hui Haifeng might very well bring everyone out of danger. Unfortunately, the chaos this time wasn't limited to dimensional creatures. There was also a human. Furthermore, he was the mastermind behind all of this. Everyone was traversing the sea of monsters in trepidation when they suddenly saw a figure slowly descend from the sky. He stood above the Seven Seas Dragon King and looked down at everyone in Sea Return City like a god. Human? Hui Haifeng's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, he wasn't most afraid of dimensional creatures, but humans. Old Master Hui and the elders from the Feng family were all people who had seen great things. When they saw the figure, their expressions changed drastically. Clearly, they realized the problem. They stopped and looked at the black-armored man on the Seven Seas Dragon King's head. I never expected there to be someone with such foresight in Sea Return City. Not bad. The person looked at Hui Haifeng below as though he was impressed. Who are you? Hui Haifeng asked with a solemn expression. My name has long been abandoned. If you must know a title, call me Night Tharch, the man said indifferently. Are the dimensional creatures' mutations in these seas related to you? Hui Haifeng asked again. Consider it a gift from me. Do you like it? Night Tharch said with a smile. You are also a human. Why are you doing this to us? Family Head Lu said with a trembling voice. Night Tharch didn't answer. He didn't even look at Family Head Lu. He continued looking at Hui Haifeng and said, You should know that you have already guessed my painstaking efforts, right? Why don't you tell me? You are urging us to evolve, but it's obvious that you have failed. Those who are infected with this special element don't even have self-consciousness. Even if their bodies become stronger, it can't be considered a true successful evolution, Hui Haifeng said. Night Tharch smiled and said, You really do understand. However, your vision is still too narrow. Evolution itself is the survival of the fittest. Creatures that can't adapt to evolution will eventually be buried in the dust of history. My experiment didn't fail, but most people are too weak. Only those who are truly strong can be reborn in the tide of evolution and become an even greater new human. You mean that this evolution has a certain success rate? Then what's the success rate? Hui Haifeng asked again. 1 in 1,000 or even lower, but it's enough. It's already good enough that there are so many elites left on Earth. There's no need to waste resources on the defective ones. Anyway, they will be eliminated sooner or later. I'm just speeding up the speed of their elimination, Night Tharch said casually. However, when Hui Haifeng and company heard this, they found it extremely cruel. There wasn't even 1 in 1,000 humans left. Such a massacre seemed to be a trivial matter to Night Tharch. Furthermore, from what he meant, not only did he want to do these things in Sea Return City, but he also wanted to promote it to the entire human society. Don't you think it's too cruel to those who originally had a chance of living? Hui Haifeng said. How can failure be cruel? Letting useless people live numbly and wasting resources that are useful in the hands of experts is true cruelty. Night Tharch looked down at Hui Haifeng and said, You are not bad. If you are willing, you can become my right-hand man and create a new human order with me. Chapter 986. Hui Haifeng took a deep breath. Although our thoughts are very similar, I'm sorry, we aren't the same kind of people. I also want humans to evolve, but I won't choose such a method. You're just deceiving yourself. I know you want to say that you will research an evolution method with a high success rate, but so what if the success rate is high? Even if it reaches a 100% success rate and everyone can become stronger, there will still be strong and weak due to different talent. The strong will become stronger, and the weak will become weaker. When the time comes, the strong will occupy most of the resources, and the weak will obtain less and less. Night Tharch said with a sneer, just like how no matter how long a worker works, the capitalists will think that they haven't worked enough. No matter how low their salary is, they will think that it's too much. In order to squeeze out the last bit of value, the weak will eventually perish or even be killed by their powerful companions. Instead of waiting for such a cruel thing to happen and wasting so much time, why don't you let me complete this step directly? Not only will it save time, but it will also allow a genius like you to not have to think about how to snatch the last grain of rice from the weak in the future. Isn't this a happy ending? If there's a sin, let me bear it. Night Tharch's eyes were firm and confident. Hui Haifeng knew that what he said wasn't an excuse for himself. He probably really thought so. I don't know if the situation you mentioned will happen, but I still want to give it a try, Hui Haifeng said. That's a pity. I really hope you can stay and help me. What a pity. However, it doesn't matter. If you can survive this, even without my help, you can prove your excellence. When that happens, you will understand everything I'm saying, Night Tharch said as he waved his hand, gesturing for the Seven Seas Dragon King to begin. The Seven Seas Dragon King raised his strange dragon-like tentacles and let out a silent roar. The dimensional creatures that had stopped attacking humans began to surround the people of Sea Return City again. Everyone immediately fell into despair. Facing the dimensional creatures that were like a tidal wave, they had long lost all their fighting spirit. They originally imagined that they could escape with Hui Haifeng's gold powder, but they never expected to die. Suddenly, the dimensional creatures that were charging at the humans slowly stopped. The Seven Seas Dragon King's body trembled, as though he was in an intense mental battle. Seven Seas, what happened? Night Tharch frowned at the Seven Seas Dragon King. The Seven Seas Dragon King had actually disobeyed his orders. The Seven Seas Dragon King didn't respond. All it did was tremble even more. No matter how Night Tharch ordered it, it didn't respond. The dimensional creatures also stopped, unsure what to do. Zhouwen ordered Primordial Spore to forcefully snatch control of the Seven Seas Dragon King's body from within. Primordial Spore hadn't completely occupied the Seven Seas Dragon King's soul, but there wasn't enough time. Zhouwen could only make such a choice. Although Primordial Spore hadn't completely occupied his soul, it had played a certain role. With the Seven Seas Dragon King restrained, it would be difficult for him to do anything for a short period of time. Something's wrong. Li Xian looked at the mentally ill Seven Seas Dragon King and realized that something might have happened. The people from Sea Return also looked eagerly at the Seven Seas Dragon King. Now, their fates no longer belonged to them. Whether they lived or died depended on a single thought from him. Although they knew that the chances were very low, they yearned for a miracle. Come out. Night Tharch seemed to realize something. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as he pressed his hand on the Seven Seas Dragon King's head. A strange electric current-like force seeped into the Seven Seas Dragon King's body. Zhouwen sensed the terror of the force. He originally wanted to continue hiding for a while, but now, he had no choice but to leave. He pulled Mia out of the Seven Seas Dragon King's stomach and teleported out of the Seven Seas Dragon King's body. He arrived above the Seven Seas Dragon King's head and looked at Night Tharch. The people from Sea Return City were alarmed. Another human had appeared above the Seven Seas Dragon King's head. It looked like a young man and woman. I knew it. Old Zhou wouldn't die so easily. Li Xian didn't find it strange when he saw Zhouwen. You're actually not dead? Night Tharch was slightly surprised. He originally thought that Zhouwen had been devoured by the Seven Seas Dragon King, but he never expected him to survive. Night Tharch, it's best you stop. Now that the Seven Seas Dragon King no longer listens to your orders, your plan can't continue, Zhouwen said. Night Tharch said indifferently, your strength isn't enough to affect the Seven Seas Dragon King. I believe you're relying on your companion beasts to affect it. As long as I kill you, your companion beasts will die together and the Seven Seas Dragon King will naturally recover. Many people want to kill me, but they failed in the end. I don't think this will be easy, Zhouwen said as he gave Mia a look. Mia nodded and immediately turned to leave, flying towards the sea. Zhouwen had already discussed this with her. She was in charge of rescuing Qin Ling and Feng Chuyen, while Zhouwen was in charge of holding back Night Tharch. Night Tharch saw through their thoughts at a glance, but he didn't stop Mia. This was because there was no need. As long as he finished Zhouwen, everything would return to normal. Wang Mingyuan is a figure. I never expected all the disciples he taught to be figures as well. Unfortunately, you didn't fuse with a guardian like Wang Mingyuan. Secondly, you didn't contract a guardian. You have no right to be my opponent, Night Tharch said as he slowly raised his hand. There's nothing impressive about having guardians. I've killed a few, Zhouwen said. I'm afraid the guardians you killed can't even transform into their terror forms, right? Night Tharch raised his right hand high before cleaving down like a blade. At the same time, he said, "Today, I'll show you what true mythical power is." Zhou quickly retreated, hoping to dodge Night Tharka's attack. However, Night Tharka's strike didn't have any ordinary essence energy or light erupt. However, the original sky suddenly darkened, and the entire world seemed to turn into darkness. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. Nothing could be seen, and Night Emperor's figure also disappeared. What is fear? The unknown and the invisible are the true greatest fear. You can't see or touch a true Terragrade expert. As long as I'm willing, I can take your life at any time. This is a true god. It can't be resisted, nor can it be resisted. Night Tharka's voice echoed in the boundless darkness as though it was everywhere, but it also didn't seem to be anywhere. Sogu. Chapter 987. All of Sea Return City fell into darkness. Everyone seemed to become blind as the fear in their hearts was magnified countless times. Even epic experts with eyesight abilities couldn't see anything in the darkness. Apart from darkness, there was only darkness. It was as though it was an eternal night. Ordinary people were used to using their eyes. They were already flustered when they suddenly lost their vision. Furthermore, there were countless monsters around them, but they couldn't see them. They didn't know what they were doing. Were they preparing to pounce over and devour them? Had the dimensional creatures' bloody mouths already reached their necks? A large part of human fear came from their imagination. And this dark environment was the easiest environment for people to unleash their fear and imagination. Zhou didn't like to imagine, so while he used Truth Listener's ability, he also activated the Supreme Hell King Life Soul, allowing his senses to become extremely sharp. However, it was useless. Be it Truth Listener's ability or Supreme Hell King's enhanced senses, he failed to discover any traces of Night Tharch. It was as though Night Tharch had melted into the night. Have you experienced true fear? Night Tharka's voice sounded in Zhou ear. However, Zhou didn't see Night Tharch. As for the night, it seemed to transform into a blade that slashed across Zhou neck. Clang! The astral shell dragon armor appeared on Zhou body as he activated absolute defense. Even so, a thin mark appeared on the armor's neck guard. Absolute defense. This should be a manifestation of the astral shell dragon companion egg, right? You're really lucky. Although the astral shell dragon's abilities aren't much, absolute defense is an extremely powerful skill. Even at the Terragrade, it won't be that easy to break through absolute defense. Night Tharka's voice drifted over from an unknown location. It was as though Night Tharka's lips were whispering into Zhou left ear, but when Zhou turned his head, he saw nothing. At this moment, the voice sounded in Zhou right ear again. Absolute defense is also one of the top abilities among the mythical abilities. Back then, I wanted to kill the astral shell dragon personally to see if a companion egg would drop. However, thinking that the chances were too low, I had no choice but to give up. I never expected you to take the astral shell dragon companion egg. Unfortunately, the astral shell dragon is only at the mythical stage without much potential after all. It can't enter its terror form and can't constantly activate absolute defense. It can only last half an hour at most. Zhou turned his head to the right but still didn't see anything. Half an hour. This is the last time you have to live in this world. Enjoy it. No, a minute has already passed. You still have 29 minutes. Night Tharka's evil voice entered Zhou ears like a demon. Facing the pressure of death, especially knowing when one might die, that kind of pressure and fear was enough to make one collapse. However, Zhou wasn't an emotional person. He knew that absolute defense couldn't protect him forever. Instead of feeling afraid, he might as well think about what to do next. Without any hesitation, his first thought was to run. Half an hour was enough for him to teleport a long distance away. However, in the darkness, Zhou teleported several times. He had already left Sea Return City, but all he saw was darkness. All the mountains and rivers were shrouded in darkness. They could hear but not see. Do you want to leave? I can let you leave. Knight Thearka's voice sounded in Zhou Wen's ear again. It was so close that it made his hair stand on end. After Knight Tharch said that, the sky brightened where Zhou Wen was. However, it was still dark in Sea Return City. This scene was unbelievable. It was daytime on Zhou Wen's side, but the city a few meters away was dark. He couldn't see anything. Didn't you want to escape? You can leave now, but the people here will become my experimental subjects to experience that 1 in 1,000 possibility. I wonder if there's anyone you care about among them? However, no matter how much you care, it can't be more important than your life, right? Knight Thearka's voice sounded from the darkness. In the darkness, Knight Tharch came to Hui Haifeng's side like a nightmare. Hui Haifeng felt his eyes light up as he could see clearly in the darkness. He punched, but Knight Thearka's body was like a shadow of darkness. Hui Haifeng's fist passed through it, but it failed to injure him at all. Knight Tharch smiled and said, "What do you think Zhou Wen will choose? He's your senior brother, right? Can the friendship between the two of you transcend the fear of death?" Hui Haifeng said calmly, "I hope he leaves. With his abilities, he will definitely be able to defeat you in the future and avenge us." Hui Haifeng didn't shout for Zhou Wen to leave quickly because he knew that such words would only stir up one's courage. He didn't need Zhou Wen to have such courage now. It's really touching. Knight Tharch came to Li Xian and Ye'er's side again. They immediately had the ability to see in the darkness. "Do you think Zhou Wen will leave or return to save you?" Knight Tharch asked with interest. Without a word, Li Xian released the ice silkworm, but it passed through Knight Tharch, who was like a shadow. It failed to cause any damage to him. How interesting. Don't you wish for him to return to save you? Don't you care if he abandons you and flees? You once treated him as your best friend and best partner, but he fled alone in times of danger. How tragic. Knight Thearka's voice sounded in the trio's ears. "If it were me, I would definitely return to save you. Even if we have to live and die together. What will Zhou Wen choose?" Knight Tharch continued. Outside Sea Return City, Zhou Wen stared at the dark and lightless city with a frown. "Do you want to escape or not? I'll give you 3 more seconds. If you don't want to escape, return to the darkness." Knight Thearka's voice sounded from the darkness again. 1, 2, 3. When Knight Tharch counted to 3, Zhou Wen turned around and flew away, quickly disappearing. In the dark Sea Return City, Knight Tharch gloated at Hui Haifeng and company. "What a pity. From the looks of it, your companion isn't reliable. Between survival and your friendship, he chose to live." "So what?" Li Xian suddenly said as he glanced at the depressed Ye'er in his arms. "Don't you feel abandoned at all?" Knight Tharch looked at Li Xian with interest. "Of course. Old Zhou is a bastard. I wish I could slice him 1,000 times, but unfortunately, I might not have such a chance." Li Xian stroked Ye'er's head and said, "Zhou Wen is a bastard like me. If it were just us here, he definitely wouldn't have returned. However, there's still the little princess he cares about the most here, so he will definitely return. Don't you think so?" Ye'er was taken aback. Her disappointed expression gradually disappeared as her eyes became determined. She nodded heavily. "Li Xian." Hui Haifeng frowned slightly. However, Li Xian waved his hand. "I know what you mean, but a bastard knows a bastard the best. Compared to letting others know that he will return, he will care more about Ye'er's feelings. We understand some things, but Ye'er is still young. We can't let her be traumatized. Even if she dies, she should leave happily." Chapter 988. You actually think he will return? Knight Tharch was really interested. Human nature couldn't withstand a test. Knight Tharch believed that it was impossible for Zhou Wen to return when he faced a life-and-death situation. Knight Tharch really wanted to see the disappointed expressions of Li Xian, Hui Haifeng, and company, so he wasn't in a hurry to get the dimensional creatures to attack. He wanted Li Xian and company to slowly experience the process of going from hope to disappointment, and then from disappointment to despair. However, not long after, Night Tharch suddenly realized that a figure was rapidly approaching Sea Return City from afar. The figure was none other than Zhou, who had returned. Zhou hadn't really escaped previously. He only wanted to test if Night Tharch would really let him go or if he had some other scheme. When Zhou confirmed that he had really escaped and that Night Tharch wasn't chasing after him, he turned around and rushed back. Li Xian, Hui Haifeng, and Yer were trapped. Zhou wasn't willing to give up while he still had the ability to do something. When Yer saw Zhou fly back, she was delighted. Hui Haifeng and Li Xian's expressions were very solemn. Zhou's return meant that they needed to risk their lives. No matter what they could do, no matter how trivial it was, as long as it could play an insignificant role in the battle, they would work hard to do it. "Why did you come back?" Night Tharch asked Zhou with interest. "I left something here. I came back to take it away," Zhou said. "What did you lose?" Night Tharch asked. "People from Sea Return City," Zhou said. "Are they your family and friends?" Night Tharch asked. "No, it's everyone in Sea Return City," Zhou said seriously. "Are you challenging my patience?" Night Tharch's voice turned cold. With his voice, darkness devoured the area outside Sea Return City again, bringing Zhou into darkness. He felt his body immerse in darkness again. Night Tharch seemed to be everywhere, existing in every corner of the darkness, but Zhou didn't panic at all. Since he dared to come back, of course, he wouldn't come back brainlessly to die. Regardless of whether it was useful or not, he had already thought of some ideas, and he wanted to give it a try. Absolute defense can only last for half an hour at most, but that's only in theory. Under a powerful attack, due to the excessive consumption, absolute defense can only last for a shorter time. If I attack with all my might, you'll die in less than 10 minutes. To be honest, I don't want that to happen, Yi Di said. You can try and see if you can kill me in 10 minutes. Zhou seemed to be confident and wasn't afraid of Night Tharch's threat. Originally, I didn't want to kill you, but since you insist on seeking death, it's hard for me to keep someone who is destined to die in this world. As Night Tharch spoke, the illusory figure seemed to vanish. Truth Listener could no longer hear anything related to Night Tharch. Now, I have to think of a way to break through the darkness and find the Night Tharch's true body before the absolute defense of the astral dragon armor disappears. Otherwise, if I can't even touch the Night Tharch's true body, there's no possibility of killing or severely injuring him. Clang! 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 Night Tharch couldn't be seen, but blades that resembled the night strangely appeared everywhere. They were like invisible blades of darkness that slashed at Zhou's body. Zhou's body retreated repeatedly, but he couldn't see where Night Tharch was. He was like a ghost in the darkness, omnipresent, but he didn't have a real body. He couldn't be seen no matter how hard he looked. Even a Terragrade creature can't be completely without a body. Be it Ice Maiden or Een Talisman King, they have their true bodies. Night Tharch definitely has his true body. It's just that I haven't found it. Where is his true body? Zhou used Truth Listener to listen to the surroundings again, but he still didn't discover anything. Even when Night Tharch attacked him, Zhou couldn't sense his existence. How did he do it? Zhou couldn't think of a reason, so he could only choose to give it a try. The invisible blade in the darkness slashed at Zhou's back again. Without even turning his head, Zhou summoned a sword and slashed at his back. The sword carried scarlet flames. It was none other than the bronze sparrow sword he had just obtained. The flames produced by the bronze sparrow sword illuminated Zhou's surroundings, but it was only limited to a very close range. Further away, it was still darkness. The light of the flames couldn't completely expel the darkness, nor could he discover Night Tharch's figure nearby. A strange black palm shadow rushed out of Zhou's shadow and slashed at his thigh. Thankfully, the astral shell dragon's armor blocked the strike. Otherwise, Zhou Wen's legs would probably have been severed. Zhou Wen's body streaked out in the darkness. Although he was protected by absolute defense and wasn't really injured, the pain from his leg made Zhou Wen clearly know that the effects of absolute defense were weakening. It was undoubtedly terrifying to fight someone who couldn't be seen or touched, but could injure or even kill him. Although this strike wasn't effective, it didn't mean that it was useless. At the very least, Zhou Wen had already realized that the light emitted by the flames was still somewhat effective against the darkness. However, the mythical flames could only illuminate a radius of 3 feet around the bronze sparrow sword. The area it could illuminate was very limited. Furthermore, Night Tharch seemed to only be able to walk in the darkness. The strike just now was an attack launched from a dark shadow illuminated by the light. Zhou Wen attempted to use the bronze sparrow sword to attack from different directions, but he naturally failed to injure Night Tharch. However, he was certain that Night Tharch had to be in the darkness to launch an omnipresent attack. He had never appeared in the light. Now, Zhou Wen was roughly certain that even if Night Tharch could attack in the light, he would definitely be unable to hide his body. To defeat Night Tharch, he had to place him in the light. However, the bronze sparrow sword's flames weren't enough to illuminate all parts of Zhou Wen's body. Even if it was bright enough, there would be shadows. With shadows there would be darkness. Night Tharch could still attack Zhou Wen through the shadows. External light is useless unless my body can emit light. This doesn't seem difficult for me. Zhou Wen thought of his life soul, primordial human sovereign. As long as he fused with primordial human sovereign, he could become an existence like a human-shaped sun. However, he didn't know how far primordial human sovereign's light could illuminate. However, even a foot of distance was enough. Without any blind spots in the darkness, Night Tharch should be able to see his true body if he attacked within a foot of distance. Chapter 989. Absolute Defense is indeed a very powerful ability. Unfortunately, if the companion beast with it is at the terror grade, then it can be considered a true absolute defense. On the astral shell dragon, this ability is a waste. Now that armor can't even last a minute. Once absolute defense completely fails, it will be the end of your life. Night Tharch's devil-like voice sounded in the darkness again, but his attacks didn't stop. Perhaps that will be the end of your life, Zhou Wen said indifferently. I'm very curious. What's the source of your confidence? Apart from the astral shell dragon, what other trump cards do you have? Why don't you use them all together? Let me see what power you are relying on. Night Tharch was really curious. From the moment Zhou Wen returned, Night Tharch's interest in him was rather strong. He didn't underestimate Zhou Wen. On the contrary, after Zhou Wen really returned, the importance he placed on Zhou Wen had risen to a rather high level. However, Night Tharch still wanted to know what Zhou Wen was relying on to return. However, Night Tharch wouldn't let go of the opportunity to kill Zhou Wen because of his curiosity. He would still kill Zhou Wen the moment the shell dragon armor failed. Therefore, he hoped to see Zhou Wen's trump card before that happened. Clang! The shell dragon armor was attacked again. This time, the blade condensed from the night directly sliced open a wound. It was deep to the bone as blood flowed out of the wound. This is your last chance. As Night Tharch attacked again, his voice entered Zhou Wen's ears. Once the shell dragon armor was broken, absolute defense was useless. Night Tharch could completely attack Zhou Wen's body through the ruptured wound and kill him directly. Zhou Wen also knew very well that this was indeed his last chance. If he couldn't block this strike, he would probably die here. In Sea Return City, only Li Xian, Hui Haifeng, and Yer received special treatment from Night Tharch and could see everything. Seeing Zhou Wen bleed, the three of them tensed up. They wanted to rush over to help, but they seemed to be separated by a strange distance. No matter how they rushed to the battlefield, they couldn't reach it. It was as though they were standing in place. Almost at the instant Night Tharch attacked, Zhou Wen changed his life soul and fused the primordial human sovereign life soul with him. Instantly, Zhou Wen's body turned into a human-shaped sun. The range he illuminated was greater than he imagined. It was even greater than the mythical flaming sword that the bronze sparrow sword illuminated. And right in front of Zhou Wen, Night Tharch stood there. He raised his fingers and stabbed at Zhou Wen's already injured wound like a sword. There were cracks in his armor, and he didn't have any defense. They finally saw it. It wasn't just Zhou Wen. Li Xian, Hui Haifeng, and company also saw Night Tharch's true body appear in the light. Without any hesitation, Zhou Wen threw the bronze sparrow sword out. Yes, it wasn't a stab, but a throw. This was the godly skill, Vajra drill. It was a skill that sacrificed one's weapon in order to unleash the strongest attack. With the augmentation of the diamond drill, the strength that erupted from this strike was equivalent to the combined strength of Zhou Wen and the bronze sparrow sword. Its speed was unimaginable as the bronze sparrow sword stabbed into Night Tharch's body and immediately exploded. Boom! Flames rose like the explosion of a sun. A mythical weapon instantly unleashed all its energy. The destructive power produced was inestimable. The darkness that enveloped Sea Return City finally vanished. Everyone regained their vision. Apart from Li Xian and a few others, no one knew what had happened. When their vision recovered, they saw Zhou Wen floating in the air like a sun god and the intense explosion. Has that terrifying Night Tharch been killed? He should be dead. Even a mythical creature wouldn't be able to survive such a terrifying explosion. Everyone prayed for this outcome. However, when the light from the explosion gradually dissipated, they realized that Night Tharch was standing there unscathed. His long black hair was still as elegant as before, as though he wasn't injured at all. You're really impressive. You have more than one life soul, and you're so powerful. You can actually reflect my true body in my night of fear. Unfortunately, although your strike is extremely powerful, any mythical creature would lose half their life even if they didn't die. However, to a terregrade, no matter how strong that power is, it's useless. Only the power of a terregrade can defeat a terregrade. You're still too weak. As Night Tharch spoke, he walked towards Zhou Wen step by step. After seeing Zhou Wen's trump card, he no longer had any curiosity. He had no regrets killing Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen touched the scabbard in his left hand with his right hand. The bronze sparrow sword condensed in the scabbard again. Weapons destroyed by the Vajra drill typically vanished. However, because the bronze sparrow sword had the ability to be reborn in the scabbard, it wouldn't really disappear. It was also the best weapon to use the Vajra drill in reality. Zhou Wen once again threw out the bronze sparrow sword with the Vajra drill. Night Tharch didn't dodge as he reached out to grab the flying bronze sparrow sword, causing it to explode in his hand. It was useless. His body was like a god's body that couldn't be injured by mortal powers. No matter how terrifying the power unleashed by the bronze sparrow sword was, it couldn't injure Night Tharch at all. Zhou Wen threw out the bronze sparrow sword again and again, but it was like he was releasing fireworks. Is he a god? Everyone from Sea Return City was dumbfounded as indescribable fear rose in their hearts. Under such a terrifying explosion, he wasn't injured at all. He was no different from a god. Night Tharch was somewhat disappointed because the Night of Fear was useless against Zhou Wen. He didn't activate it again. He destroyed everything with a powerful wave of his hand and arrived in front of Zhou Wen. He didn't even give Zhou Wen a chance to draw his sword as he slapped Zhou Wen's head with one hand, hoping to end his life. With absolute defense completely gone, it was impossible for Zhou Wen to withstand the palm. Zhou Wen's right hand still moved. However, this time, he didn't pull out the bronze sparrow sword with his right hand, nor did he use the Vajra drill. An icy blue dragon tooth, that looked like it was carved from sapphire, appeared in Zhou Wen's right hand. Then, it flashed with the power of darkness right hand. It was so fast that no one could see it. By the time everyone saw it, The icy blue dragon tooth in Zhou Wen's hand had already penetrated Knight Thearka's chest. Chapter 990. Knight Tharch looked down at his chest and saw blood slowly flowing out of the ice-blue dragon tooth. Ice Dragon King's tooth. Knight Thearka's face instantly turned extremely pale. Zhou Wen let go of the dragon tooth. His palm that held the dragon tooth had already frozen. If he continued holding it, his palm and armor would probably freeze to pieces. Didn't you say that only a Terragrade can injure a Terragrade? As you wish. Zhou Wen pulled out an ice dragon rib with his left hand and slashed at Knight Tharch again. Zhou Wen also wanted to use Dr. Darkness's darkness right hand with his right hand, but his right hand was already numb from the cold. He couldn't raise it at all. The power of the Terragrade was just too terrifying. Just holding the dragon tooth to attack was already something his palm couldn't withstand. Therefore, he could only switch to his left hand. Although his left hand wasn't as sick as Darkness' right hand, it was augmented by Dr. Darkness's golden left hand. Its speed and strength were much stronger. Furthermore, Zhou Wen's strike was immortal slaying, which Slaughterer had participated in. It was unbelievably fast. With a flash, he intersected with Knight Tharch. As he switched life souls, the sun-like light vanished, revealing Zhou Wen's true appearance. As for Knight Thearka's arm, it was forcefully severed by Zhou Wen. However, Knight Tharch vanished like a phantom, fleeing without a trace. Only an arm and the dragon tooth that had stabbed into his chest fell out. He actually managed to escape? Zhou Wen was somewhat disappointed, but he didn't chase after him. His left hand was already frostbitten, so it was impossible for his two hands to use the ice dragon's body parts. Furthermore, after using immortal slaying, his strength was exhausted. He might not be able to gain an advantage even if he chased after him. The people from Sea Return City didn't know Zhou Wen's current situation. Seeing him easily injure the godlike Knight Tharch with 2 strikes and sever one of his arms, they looked at Zhou Wen with reverence. "Let them return to the sea," Zhou Wen said to the Seven Seas Dragon King. Although the Seven Seas Dragon King's consciousness hadn't been completely parasitized, its will resistance suddenly weakened after Knight Tharch escaped. Primordial Spore had the upper hand. Although it was still difficult to destroy the Seven Seas Dragon King's consciousness, some simple control was enough. With Zhou Wen's order, the Seven Seas Dragon King's 7 strange dragon-like tentacles roared at the sky. The mutated marine dimensional creatures retreated into the 7 dragons' sea like a tide. Seeing a powerful dimensional creature like the Seven Seas Dragon King listen to Zhou Wen's orders, everyone's expressions turned even odder. They found it unbelievable that he was only a human youth. Many people from the Hui and Feng families recognized Zhou Wen and knew that he was Hui Haifeng and Feng Chuyen's classmate. Their expressions turned even odder. Back when Feng Chuyen mentioned Zhou Wen to his elders, he even said that Zhou Wen had taught him many things. Back then, the Feng family didn't think much of it. But now, from their point of view, Feng Chuyen was extremely lucky to be able to learn from Zhou Wen. "I'm going to the underwater abyss to take a look. Do you want to come with me?" Zhou Wen was afraid that Knight Tharch would return to the underwater palace to find trouble with Mia and company, so he landed on the Seven Seas Dragon King's head and asked Li Xian and Hui Haifeng. "We'll go with you." Li Xian chased after him with Ye in his arms. Hui Haifeng also boarded the Seven Seas Dragon King. The Seven Seas Dragon King reluctantly headed for the sea and quickly disappeared into the raging waves. "Old Master Hui, are we still leaving Sea Return City?" Family head Lu walked in front of Old Master Hui and asked carefully. The others also looked at Old Master Hui eagerly. Although they usually treated Old Master Hui as their leader, they were clearly more respectful now. Old Master Hui knew very well that the reason they were so respectful wasn't because he was the head of the Hui family. It was mainly because of Hui Haifeng and Zhou Wen. Although he didn't know if Zhou Wen had called Hui Haifeng along on purpose or not, it had undoubtedly helped the Hui family greatly. In the future, it would be much more convenient for the Hui family to do things in Sea Return City, especially matters related to Hui Haifeng. As for Hui Haifeng's previous research results, everyone saw his potential and possibilities. They no longer dared to underestimate him. If not for Hui Haifeng's gold powder, they would have long been infected. They wouldn't have had the chance to wait for Zhou to come out. The members of the Feng family were also secretly plotting. Feng Qiuyan and Zhou Wen's relationship wasn't any weaker than Hui Haifeng's. It seemed like they should do something. There's no need to leave for the time being. However, the situation is unpredictable. It's best everyone return and pack up. Go out and think of a solution to leave a way out for the family, Old Master Hui said ambiguously. However, his words resonated with everyone's thoughts. They were in a hurry to escape. Previously, they hadn't been able to bring many things out. Now they could go back and take them. They had to slowly transfer their family assets out. Even if they could stay in Sea Return, they couldn't treat this place as their foundation. Before Zhou and company arrived at the underwater abyss, they saw Mia return with Qin Ling and Feng Qiuyan. They weren't in much of a problem, but they had been imprisoned in the palace by Night Tharch. It wasn't easy for Mia to break the power that sealed them before saving them. Night Tharch is also a strange person. You might say that he's ruthless, but he killed billions of people as easily as drinking cold water. However, he had so many opportunities, but he didn't kill us, Li Xian said. This person really can't be treated as a purely bad person, but sometimes such a person is more terrifying than a bad person. Zhou paused before saying, "We still have to think of a way to resolve Qin Ling's problem. Otherwise, Night Tharch will make a comeback sooner or later. If I'm not wrong, the source of those marine mutated creatures should be her, right?" Hui Haifeng sized up Qin Ling and said. Qin Ling nodded slightly. "I'm sorry for implicating everyone. There's no need to say that. You aren't wrong. It's this era that's wrong." Hui Haifeng thought for a moment before saying, "If you trust me, you can give me some time and cooperate with my research. Perhaps I can resolve the problem with you and prevent Night Tharch from finding trouble with you." Qin Ling looked at Hui Haifeng in puzzlement before looking at Feng Qiuyan and Mia. "Senior Hui has done a lot of research on biological mutations. Let him give it a try. Perhaps he really can do it. Even if he can't, there won't be a worse situation," Li Xian said. Li Xian still trusted Hui Haifeng's character. "If you trust us, you can let Senior give it a try," Zhou said as well. Seeing Feng Qiuyan and Mia nod slightly, Qin Ling bowed at Hui Haifeng. "Qin Ling really doesn't know how to repay you. If you really succeed, helping us take care of junior brother Little Feng will be the repayment," Hui Haifeng said with a smile. Upon hearing Hui Haifeng's words, Zhou knew that he had some confidence, but he didn't know what he was going to do. Zhou didn't know any of this, nor could he help. All he wanted to do now was go to Night Tharch's Abyss Palace to take a look and see if there was anything there. He had previously found so many ice dragon items. Perhaps there was a similar place in the Deep Sea Palace. Chapter 991. The palace in the deep sea was already empty. Ordinary dimensional creatures didn't dare approach it. Night Tharch and the Seven Seas Dragon King, who lived here, had fled. The other had most of Primordial Spore's authority over him. Zhou searched everywhere in the palace. He almost flipped the place upside down, but he didn't find anything. There were only some daily necessities and equipment here. From the looks of it, this palace was more like a place Night Tharch used for research. Zhou wasn't interested in the research information and equipment here, but Hui Haifeng treated them as treasures. He treated them as treasures. Zhou had no choice but to help him transport the equipment and information back. Although Hui Haifeng's research direction was similar to Night Tharch's, Hui Haifeng wasn't as radical as Night Tharch. The results he could produce wouldn't be as unreliable as Night Tharch's. Without any gains, Zhou went to the Seven Seas Dragon King's lair to take a look. This time, he really made a discovery. He discovered the blue glacier again. When he dug it out, he saw something that looked like a fingernail. It was very likely the tip of a dragon claw. This discovery delighted Zhou. He was still no match for a terrorgrade creature, but with the help of these terror items, he had a chance of injuring a terrorgrade creature or even killing it. Therefore, Zhou treated these items like treasures. Recalling that he hadn't been to Infinite Island where Dragon Granny was, Zhou made another trip to Infinite Island and found another terror item that looked like a dragon's whisker. The lair of the 7 dragon monarchs and the Dragon Sea Dragon King has the same terror item of the Ice Dragon King. If Night Tharch killed the Ice Dragon King, why did he place these items in the 7 dragon monarchs' lair? Why didn't he collect them himself or destroy them? Zhou was puzzled. If he hadn't found the Ice Dragon King's terror item, it would have been very difficult for him to injure Night Tharch. He might not have been able to stop him. In the empty Abyss Palace, Zhou took out all the Ice Dragon King's items: teeth, bones, scales, horns, whiskers, claws, eyes, and hair. These were all parts of the Ice Dragon King, but they weren't complete. They were only a very small portion. Zhou could clearly sense that there was a vague connection between the Ice Dragon King's terror items, but this connection was very weak and didn't affect him much. From the looks of it, there's still something missing? Zhou had a nagging feeling that the 8 items weren't complete. The completeness Zhou mentioned wasn't referring to the completeness of the Ice Dragon King's body, but that when these 8 items were placed together, it felt like something was missing. The Tharch said that it's very difficult for even terrorgrade creatures to revive after death, but just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's impossible. I think there's something wrong with this item. Otherwise, it's impossible for the Night Tharch to place them in different places. He could have kept them for himself. Zhou was guessing if Night Tharch had another terror item that belonged to the Ice Dragon King. Perhaps it was the most important one. Ordinary creatures didn't dare touch terror items, much less carry them on them. However, Night Tharch was naturally different. He was at the terror grade, so it shouldn't be a problem. However, Zhou didn't know where Night Tharch was now. He didn't want to see him again, much less get the item in his hands. In the next few days, Hui Haifeng did some research. At the same time, he grasped Night Tharch's information. This information and equipment made Hui Haifeng more confident in resolving Qin Ling's problem. He had already begun making preparations. He believed that it wouldn't take long for him to complete it. Zhou didn't know much about it. When he had nothing to do, he looked at the cube's ranking and realized that the top 10 had already been occupied by guardians. Furthermore, the number of guardians on the list had already reached 14. During this period of time, more and more guardians had been on the list. It looked like they wanted to use this ranking battle to defeat their opponent. First place was still Ya. Second place didn't change. It was still Great Skyfiend that Ya had defeated. Third place was Fairy Burial. Following that were some guardians that Zhou had never seen before. Their names looked very powerful. There was also a fellow named Metal Reaper. Zhou looked at his projection and realized that the guardian was like a metal robot. It looked like its combat strength was off the charts. For some reason, Starry Night, who had previously been ranked very high, fell to 10th place, barely staying in the top 10. Zhou searched for Starry Night online and realized that a guardian had previously challenged Starry Night. However, Starry Night didn't accept the challenge and his ranking automatically dropped. Later, there were a few consecutive challenges, but Starry Night didn't accept them. Soon, he fell to 10th place. The reason Zhou paid attention to Starry Night was that he felt that Starry Night might be Lu Yun. Therefore, he paid more attention, but it was only a guess. On the ranking, Zhou could already confirm that the guardians were Jiang Yan's Fairy Burial and Yusuji Nao's Great Skyfiend. In addition, Zhou guessed that Ya was Zhong Zia and Starry Night was Lu Yun. If this was the case, among Wang Mingyuan's students, only he and Hui Haifeng weren't on the rankings. Hui Haifeng wanted to do research, so he definitely wouldn't participate in the battle. Zhouwen didn't have a strong desire to participate either. Previously, he wanted to participate in the battle because he wanted to go to the dimension to take a look at Wang Mingyuan's situation. However, now that he knew that Wang Mingyuan seemed to be doing well over there, Zhouwen lacked the motivation to participate in the battle. It didn't seem worth it to risk his life for a divine fruit. Furthermore, Zhouwen hadn't advanced to the mythical stage, so it was impossible for him to participate in the battle. Just as Zhouwen was studying the rankings, he saw the cube suddenly light up. It was a countdown. There was only 1 month left. On the cube's screen, a shadow appeared. The shadow was distorted and blurry. It was impossible to see what it looked like, but it made one feel that it was a creature. Zhouwen had once entered the dimension and knew that the other party was indeed a creature. However, as the level of the dimensional world far exceeded Earth's, the vision of Earth creatures couldn't accurately capture the other party's physical characteristics. Therefore, it looked like a distorted shadow. In fact, it wasn't that the other party was distorted, but that the level of Earthlings' vision wasn't high enough. Soon, the shadow said, in 720 hours, the person in first place on the rankings will become the owner of Earth and control its fate. Human with a guardian, show your strength to your heart's content. The winner is king and the loser is a bandit. This is an eternal truth. I look forward to the birth of the King of Earth. Chapter 992. Many people disagreed with the figure's words. So what if he became first on the rankings? No matter how strong he was, it was impossible for him to control all humans. The various bigwigs wouldn't admit such a person as the Lord of Earth. You might think that this is ridiculous. Why is the first on the rankings the Lord of Earth? This is very simple. It's because the first on the rankings will obtain this dimensional wheel that represents the authority of the dimension. The person who controls it will obtain invincible power. The duration of the dimensional wheel will continue until the next year's ranking battle. Then, the next year's King of Earth and the owner of the dimensional wheel will be decided. As the figure spoke, a wheel of light appeared on the screen. As the light was too intense, it was like the sun. Ordinary people couldn't see what it was. Zhouwen took a careful look for a while, and could only tell that it was a ball. He didn't know what it was for. Have the rules been changed? Zhouwen was puzzled as he sent the Dharch a message. The Dharch, I remember you once said that the various races agreed to hold a guardian battle every 100 years to determine the ownership of Earth. Why has it become a year now? The Dharch quickly replied. I'm at Chess Mountain. How would I know what happened in the dimension? However, I can guess that it might have something to do with your teacher, Wang Mingyuan. Why? Zhouwen didn't understand how the Dharch came to such a conclusion. Because those fellows from the dimension are also afraid, the Dharch said. Afraid? Are you saying that they are afraid of teacher? Zhouwen asked in puzzlement. Although Wang Mingyuan had become the king of the dragon gods, according to what Zhouwen knew, there were 8 such kings in the Octokind. Furthermore, above the Octokind were terrifying epigenic grade experts. It didn't seem right to say that they were afraid of Wang Mingyuan. Wang Mingyuan only absorbed and fused with a guardian in such a short period of time to break through to the calamity grade. Such an evolution speed is extremely terrifying in the dimension. You have to know that the time in the dimension isn't calculated like humans. Any life form's lifespan far exceeds that of humans by 100 or even 1,000 times, but their evolution speed will be much slower. Wang Mingyuan's evolution speed has frightened some dimensional races, so they want to speed up their exploration of Earth, the Dharch said. If they are really that afraid, why don't they just kill teacher? Zhouwen felt that the Thearcha's analysis wasn't convincing. It's not like there's only one race in the dimension. The relationship between them is also very complicated. Although I didn't see it with my own eyes, I can imagine that your teacher is a very intelligent person. He grasped the balance of survival in the dimension. Although it might be very dangerous, he isn't dead yet, the Dharch said. That's just your guess, Zhouwen said after some thought. It doesn't matter if it's right or not. What's interesting is that some fellows have changed the rules. It already proves how impatient they are. The Dharch didn't argue with Zhouwen. What exactly is that dimensional wheel? Can one really be invincible with it? Zhouwen paid more attention to this question. I don't know. I've been trapped in Chess Mountain for too long. In our era there was no such thing. However, since it was created by those fellows, I believe it should possess immense strength. I don't know if it can be invincible, but the strength of that thing is definitely not weaker than the Terrorgrade, the Dharch said after some thought. All the cubes in the world dimmed. The creature and the dimensional wheel that had spoken earlier disappeared. Zhouwen's expression was somewhat solemn. This was because the appearance of the dimensional wheel had caused the situation on Earth to slide in an unpredictable direction. If it was really as they said, that possessing the dimensional wheel was equivalent to being invincible, what if the person who obtained the dimensional wheel was someone like Jing Daoxian or Night Dharch? Just think about how invincible power without any restrictions would appear on Earth and be controlled by a crazy person. What would happen to Earth? Zhouwen couldn't imagine it, nor did he dare think about it. At the same time, what made Zhouwen feel depressed was the high and mighty attitude of the dimensional creatures. It was as though they treated Earth as a playground. Whoever won the game would receive their rewards. What was the difference between this and dogs fighting in a dogfighting ring and being rewarded with a meal of dog food by their owners? How can I break the influence of the dimension on humans? Zhouwen constantly pondered over this question. Seizing the so-called dimensional wheel that gave him invincible power wasn't the real solution to the problem. Zhouwen wasn't interested in being the king of the dogfighting ring. What he wanted was to destroy the dimensional creatures that thought they were high and mighty. It doesn't seem possible to defeat them at the moment. The physique of humans is too weak. Without the help of a guardian, it will be difficult for them to advance to the mythical stage. And mythical stage creatures are no different from cannon fodder in the dimension. Zhouwen knew very well how big the gap was. However, no matter how big the gap was, he still wanted to continue because there was no way out unless he wanted to live his life in a muddle-headed manner. Can I think of a way to sever the connection between the dimension and Earth? Such a thought surfaced in Zhouwen's mind, but he quickly rejected it. Perhaps there really was a way to sever the connection between the two, but after severing it, humans would no longer have the possibility of advancing further. They would only be trapped in this world and unable to make any progress. Once the passageway between the two was opened again, humans would face an even more difficult situation. Instead of waiting to be ravaged, it was better to resolve the problem now and make humans stronger. They were strong enough to fight dimensional creatures. Only then could they truly escape the fate of being enslaved. Ice Maiden once said that Earth might be the birthplace of the dimension. There are many things here that can be said to be extremely precious in the dimension. Perhaps this is the true opportunity for humans, Zhouwen thought to himself. Are you interested in becoming the king of Earth? I can help you sign a contract with the strongest guardian. The Dharch wanted to tempt Zhouwen again. How powerful is it? Is it at the terror grade? Zhouwen asked. Of course. The Dharch gave an affirmative answer. A guardian that survived from ancient times? Zhouwen immediately guessed something. This was because Zhouwen had never seen any guardian born from the cocoon with the ability to transform into a terror form. Yes, in that era, the invincible guardian of the world. The Dharch sent a message. Chapter 993. Which guardian is it? Zhouwen asked. If you're willing, you will naturally know when the time comes, the Dharch said. Forget it. I'm just an ordinary student. I'll let someone else be the king of Earth. Zhouwen naturally wouldn't agree. Now, he was just short of advancing to a perfect body. Perhaps the mythical stage was already right in front of him. How could he contract a guardian at such a time? Zhou wouldn't even consider being the current number one in the universe, much less the number one in the world back then. Furthermore, Zhou couldn't tell how true the Thearcha's words were. In the Thearcha's era, the invincible guardian shouldn't be from Chess Mountain, right? Zhou still knew some history. Chess Mountain likely represented the Shang dynasty, but the Shang dynasty was eventually replaced by the Zhou dynasty. If that was also a guardian battle, then the strongest guardian should be the Zhou dynasty. Therefore, Zhou felt that the Tharch was probably bragging to deceive him. Hui Haifeng's research finally bore fruit. After injecting Qin Ling with new elements, the Dragonman bloodline in Qin Ling's body turned from an unstable state to a stable state. Zhou didn't know how he could distinguish between stable and unstable, but Hui Haifeng told them with certainty that Qin Ling's Dragonman bloodline couldn't be used to mutate other creatures in the future. This way, Qin Ling would be useless to the Night Tharch. The Night Tharch probably wouldn't cause trouble for him again. On the other hand, the dimensional creatures in the Seven Dragons Sea were a huge problem. If humans were injured by them, they would still be infected and mutate. This was something that couldn't be resolved. This was because all the creatures in the Seven Dragons Sea had been infected and mutated. There were so many dimensional creatures that it was impossible to kill them all. There were so many that it was unimaginable. Therefore, he could only hope that humans didn't court death. As long as they didn't enter the Seven Dragons Sea, they would be fine. Without the Seven Seas Dragon King's command, the dimensional creatures wouldn't rush out of the Seven Dragons Sea. Of course, he couldn't rule out the possibility of someone wanting to take the 1 in 1,000 chance. If the mutation really succeeded, they would obtain considerable strength. As for the Seven Seas Dragon King, Zhou got Primordial Spore to control it into the calabash and treat it as its residence. Primordial Spore still couldn't completely occupy its soul. The Seven Seas Dragon King would occasionally resist, but most of the time, Primordial Spore took the initiative. Sea Return City was almost done, and Night Tharch didn't return again. Zhou planned on leaving Sea Return and heading north. After returning to Luoyang, he would head to the north to take a look. Firstly, because the Ultimate family in the North District had expressed goodwill to Zhou, and secondly, Lance had always wanted to invite him. Furthermore, Sadie, Gully, and company were considered members of the Xianwen Club. They had a good relationship with Zhou and company, so they wanted to invite Zhou to the Ultimate Family Clan as a guest. Sadie and Grid had originally come for Zhou and didn't plan on completing 4 years of studies at Sunset College. Therefore, it was only a matter of time before they returned. Now that they heard that Zhou was willing to go to the Ultimate Family Clan, they planned on returning together. Now that the roads between the districts were getting more and more difficult to travel, they were afraid that if they returned any later, it wouldn't be so easy anymore. Yang said, Zhou. Dong. 1 to Hua. Now the Hui Cc, the 1, Hui, the C, the Yang, he 1, he. Hui Haifeng wanted to stay in Sea Return City to do research, so Li Xian and Feng Chuyen followed Zhou to the North District. Zhou found it odd that Feng Chuyen didn't stay in Sea Return City to accompany Qin Ling. Little Yanyan, aren't you afraid that Beauty Qin will be snatched away by others in Sea Return City? Li Xian was more gossipy than Zhou as he asked directly. Feng Chuyen sighed and said, Actually, I don't know what to do. Don't tell me you despise her for having a dragon bloodline? Li Xian said with widened eyes. It's not what you think. It's just that I've always treated her as my sister in the past. I've never thought about that. I'm momentarily at a loss, Feng Chuyen said in distress. You really don't know how fortunate you are. If I had such a beautiful fiancée, I would have long lost my virginity, Li Xian said. Don't talk so much. Zhou said to Feng Chuyen, then you have to think carefully. Otherwise, you'll regret it when the time comes. I know. I'll consider it carefully, Feng Chuyen said seriously. After meeting up with Sadie and Gully, everyone set off for the North District. The changes along the way were indeed huge, but the Ultimate Family clan had long sent people over to bring Sadie and Gully back. Zhouwen followed them without any accident. The North District had become even colder. There was ice and snow everywhere. The creatures that could survive here were of very high quality. Sadie and Gully told Zhouwen many dimensional zones in the North District, making him look forward to them. The group arrived at Frost City, where the Ultimate Family clan was. The city here was built from ice, making it look like a fairy tale world. Zhouwen originally imagined that Lance would come to pick them up, but he didn't see him. Furthermore, when Zhouwen asked about Lance, the person who came to pick them up was evasive, as though he was hiding something. What happened to Lance? Gully was a straightforward person as he grabbed the person and asked. Helpless, the person had no choice but to tell Gully and company. Only then did everyone know that Lance was injured. The person who injured him was a young man from the Ultimate Family clan, but he could only be considered a collateral relative. Lance had been injured in a fair duel. Impossible. How can that fellow, Joseph, be my brother's match? Even if my brother gave him a handicap, he wouldn't be his match. Gully immediately shouted when he heard the name of the person who had injured Lance. Gully, you've been away from Frost City for too long. There are some things you aren't aware of. Joseph has contracted a guardian and is now extremely powerful. He challenged Lance and defeated him. Among the younger generation, he's the strongest, the person said to Sadie. As the person spoke, he said to Sadie, Sadie, you have to be careful. He challenged Lance and even severely injured him. I'm afraid he will challenge you again. How dare he? Gully said angrily. Sadie gestured for Gully not to be angry. After some thought, she said, Joseph is also a member of the Ultimate Family clan. I don't think he will go against me. Let's head back first. The few of them entered the city. After Zhouwen and Li Xian settled down, they planned on taking a stroll around Frost City. Zhouwen and company did as the Romans do. They each bought a fur coat and a fur hat. Yura wore a white fox fur coat and looked charmingly naive. There's actually someone selling tyrant behemoth dolls here? As they were shopping, they entered a shop. Li Xian said in surprise when he saw a large tyrant behemoth doll. That's a figurine, not a doll, a 7- or 8-year-old boy corrected him seriously. Chapter 994. Isn't it the same? Li Xian said. Of course it's different. Figurines aren't toys for children, but works of art, the boy explained very seriously. I don't see anything different. It's just a doll. Li Xian looked left and right, but he couldn't tell what was different about the tyrant behemoth doll. It just looked more exquisite. The boy said angrily, No way. Don't spout nonsense if you don't understand. This is a great work of art. Li Xian looked inside the shop and curled his lip. If it's really a great work of art, why isn't there a single customer in the shop other than you? Let me see. Wow. Such a small doll is actually selling for more than 100,000. It's no wonder no one buys it. After all, dolls are just dolls. They're so expensive. Which child would spend so much money to buy a doll? So much money is enough to buy a very good legendary companion egg. Li Xian was a little bored and wanted to tease the boy. The boy immediately said, That's not the case. Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui sold very well in the past, but what? Li Xian pressed. However, those people are too superficial. They think that Guardians are stronger than Tyrant Behemoth, so they are buying Guardian figurines, the boy said sadly. Is this shop yours? Zhouwen looked at the companion beast models in the shop. Several top companion beast models from the previous ranking were sold, but most of them were Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui. The other companion beast models typically only had 2 or 3 types, but Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui models had all sorts of different versions. There was a huge difference in size and model. There were replicas, cartoonish versions, cute versions, and ferocious versions. There was a huge difference in size. The largest tyrant behemoth was on the shop's display stand. It was more than 4 meters tall and looked very similar to tyrant behemoth when it wasn't gigantified. It was a 1-to-1 replica. Zhouwen really didn't know that tyrant behemoth and Tai Sui were so popular. Yes. The boy nodded. Since guardian figurines are so easy to sell, why don't you sell them? Is there a problem with the supply? Zhouwen asked curiously. The boy shook his head and said, the figurines are manufactured by our own factory. It's very easy to manufacture guardian figurines, but I don't like them. I don't want to sell those guardian figurines. Why? Has the guardian bullied you? Li Xian asked with interest. I'm selling these companion beast figurines because they are partners that fight for humanity, but those guardians aren't. I heard from Mom that those guardians fight to enslave Earth and us humans. No matter how powerful they are, I won't sell their figurines, much less make them, the boy said seriously. When Zhouwen and Li Xian heard that, they knew that the boy's background wasn't simple. For him to know such information, it was likely that his father wasn't ordinary. Everyone else is selling. If you don't sell, there won't be any business. Then, can this shop continue operating? Li Xian said. Anyway, the shop belongs to my family. At most, I won't sell it. It's no big deal. Furthermore, I believe that Tyrant Behemoth, Tai Sui, and company will definitely display their powerful strength on the rankings. When that happens, those superficial fellows will know that companion beasts aren't inferior to guardians at all. They will even be stronger, the boy said. This time, Li Xian didn't attack him. Although he knew that the possibility of a companion beast appearing alone was very low, unless it appeared with a guardian, it was possible for it to appear in the Battle of Guardians. However, seeing how stubborn and serious the boy was, even Li Xian couldn't bear to tell him the truth. A middle-aged man walked in and said to the boy, "Little E, it's time for us to return." However, when he saw Zhouwen's appearance clearly, he said in surprise, "You are Zhouwen?" When the boy heard the word Zhouwen, he was first taken aback before widening his eyes. He looked at Zhouwen in puzzlement and asked, "Your name is Zhouwen too?" "My name is Zhouwen." Zhouwen nodded slightly. The middle-aged man said, "What do you mean his name is Zhouwen?" "He's Tyrant Behemoth's owner, Zhouwen." After the boy heard that, he asked in disbelief, Are you really Tyrant Behemoth's owner?" "If there's no second Tyrant Behemoth, I think I should be," Zhouwen said. You. Are you really Tyrant Behemoth? Is it all right?" "No, that's not what I meant. It's great to be able to see you. My name is Li Benyi. I like you and your Tyrant Behemoth very much." The boy immediately became nervous as he spoke incoherently. "Do you want to see the real Tyrant Behemoth?" Zhouwen asked with a smile. Can I? Li Benyi's excited voice trembled. "Of course." Zhouwen looked at the space. The exhibition hall was very tall, and it was more than enough to accommodate Tyrant Behemoth. He summoned Tyrant Behemoth. "Wow. It's really Tyrant Behemoth. It's too cool. It's much cooler than what I saw in the video. Our figurines aren't good enough." Li Benyi looked at Zhouwen with a look of desire. "Can I touch it?" "Of course. If you are willing, I can let it take you around," Zhouwen said. Yes. Of course I'm willing. Thank you so much." Li Benyi immediately jumped up in excitement. Zhouwen got Tyrant Behemoth to reach out and lift Li Benyi up. He placed him on his shoulder and carried him around the shop. "It's really cool. When I grow up, I want to have such a companion beast." Li Benyi stroked Tyrant Behemoth's hair with a blissful expression. "I'm sorry to trouble you," the middle-aged man said to Zhouwen. "It's nothing. It's rare for someone to like my companion beast so much." Zhouwen looked at the symbol on the middle-aged man's clothes and asked, "Are you from the Ultimate Family Clan?" The middle-aged man nodded. "Yes, I was in charge of picking you up, but something happened on my side. I was temporarily replaced by someone else. I never expected us to be fated to meet here. My name is Li Benyi." Zhou Wen chatted with Li Binyu for a while before learning that he was considered a subsidiary of the Ultimate Family Clan. He didn't have the bloodline of the Ultimate Family Clan. He was only invited to join because of his talent in a certain aspect. Li Binyu was from the East District, but his wife was of pure Ultimate Family Clan bloodline. Li Benyi was of mixed blood. Thank you. I've fulfilled one of my 2 dreams. Now, all that's left is to see Tai Sui with my own eyes. When Tyrant Behemoth brought Li Benyi back, he still wore a look of longing. He held Tyrant Behemoth's finger, unwilling to let go. At the same time, he thanked Zhou Wen. Chapter 995. Li Xian couldn't help but be amused when he heard that. He glanced at Zhou Wen and said, "Benyi, your other dream was to meet Tai Sui?" "That's right. Tyrant Behemoth is our Federation's hero, and so is Tai Sui. Furthermore, it was last season's #1. I also want to meet it with my own eyes, but I don't know who its owner is. I got Dad to help me investigate for a long time, but I couldn't find out who Tai Sui's owner is." Li Benyi said helplessly, "That's right. A mysterious companion beast like Tai Sui's owner must be a very powerful human, an existence like the 6 heroes. Even if I know who its owner is, it'll be very difficult for me to meet him, right?" "It's actually not difficult for you to meet Tai Sui. Just beg him," Li Xian said as he pointed at Zhou Wen. "Why?" Li Benyi still didn't understand. "Because Tai Sui is also his companion beast. If he's happy, you can even hug Tai Sui to sleep, much less look at it," Li Xian said. Li Benyi gaped in disbelief. He looked at Zhou Wen, speechless. It was as though happiness had come too suddenly. Tai Sui was his companion beast. It was no longer a secret. Many people around him knew about it, so there was no need to hide it. Zhou Wen decided to summon Tai Sui. "It's really Tai Sui. You actually have Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui at the same time. You are really lucky." Li Benyi's eyes turned red with excitement. "It's all right. The 2 of them aren't easy to raise," Zhou Wen said with a smile. "Can I hug it?" Li Benyi automatically ignored Zhou Wen's words as he looked at Tai Sui, who was like a white bouncing ball. "Sure." Zhou Wen nodded. Li Benyi picked up Tai Sui with trembling hands and felt as though he was the happiest person in the world. In just one day, all his dreams had been fulfilled. Zhou Wen. No. Idle. You will let Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui participate in the battle, right? You will defeat those guardians, right? Li Benyi suddenly thought of something as he asked Zhou Wen excitedly. "I have something to do recently. I don't know if I can finish it. If I finish it before the 1-month countdown, I might participate in the battle," Zhou Wen said. "I see. I hope you can finish it quickly. I really want to see Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui defeat those guardians." Although Li Benyi was somewhat disappointed, he was still very supportive of Zhou Wen. He only hoped that Zhou Wen could finish the matter before the ranking battle ended. If an adult were to hear Zhou Wen's explanation, they would think that it was just an excuse, but Li Benyi believed it. "All right," Zhou Wen replied with 8. If he could advance to the mythical stage before the Battle of Guardians, he did have plans to participate in the battle. Even if he couldn't get first place, he could eliminate some guardians. However, he Tian and Wen be the god, he Cheng Chen want, he Teet Jot, he the one, he Sut, he Zhou Teet Sut. Guardians would only become stronger. For example, Knight Thearka's guardian was already at the Terror grade. Most of the newly contracted guardians probably hadn't reached the Terror grade. It was relatively easy to get rid of them now, but in the future, the situation would only become more complicated. "Little E, how can you believe such a lame excuse? You're too naive." A voice sounded from the door. Everyone turned their heads and saw a young man about the same age as Zhou Wen and company walk into the shop. "Joseph, what are you doing here?" Li Benyi said unhappily when he saw the young man. "Of course I'm here to see my brother and uncle," Joseph said indifferently. Who's your brother? We don't have that kind of relationship, Li Benyi said. You're still young and immature. I don't blame you. Joseph frowned slightly before turning to Li Benyu and saying, Uncle, have you considered the matter we discussed last time? Li Benyu pondered for a moment and said, Joseph, you should know that the companion beast was specially prepared for little E by the family head. Uncle, little E is still young. If he wants to contract a mythical companion egg, he'll have to wait at least more than 10 years. You also know how fast the world is changing. In more than 10 years, mythical companion eggs won't be worth much anymore. If you lend the companion egg to me now, you should know that I've already contracted a guardian. With the help of a mythical companion beast, it'll be like adding wings to a tiger. Killing mythical creatures will be as easy as flipping my hand. Won't I have as many mythical companion eggs as I want in the future? When little E grows up, I'll give him 10 mythical companion eggs. After listening for a while, Zhou Wen and Li Xian roughly understood what was going on. However, it was a family matter after all. The two of them didn't know the cause and effect, so they didn't say anything. Joseph, I'm really sorry. This companion egg is said to be for Joseph, but in fact, it's the family head's dowry for your aunt. It has a different meaning, so I can't lend it to you, Li Benyu said. Uncle, why aren't you enlightened? You and my aunt raised me from a young age. You're like my biological parent. Now that I've contracted a guardian, I have the right to speak in the family. In the future, my authority will increase. My parents are long dead. You are my only family. In the future, not only will I take care of you and my aunt, but I'll also take care of little E in the family. Won't all the resources be the best? Now that I have the ability, I'll repay you well in the future. You also know that I've just contracted a guardian and haven't had the time to get mythical companion beasts. If you help me now, you'll be helping your family. Joseph continued persuading. I really can't help you with this matter. Furthermore, we adopted you back then because your mother is my wife's younger sister. We didn't expect you to repay us. It's fine as long as you lead a good life, Li Benyu said. Joseph's expression turned ugly. Uncle, let's talk about this later. You have to discuss it with my aunt. My aunt should be able to understand that this is a good thing for our family. Then wait for her to come back. I still have guests to entertain, so I won't keep you, Li Benyu said. Joseph glanced at Zhou Wen and curled his lips in disdain. Zhou Wen, right? I heard that your companion beasts are very powerful? Unfortunately, the era of companion beasts has passed. In the future, it'll be the Guardian's world. It's useless having so many companion beasts. It's useless. Aren't you shamelessly trying to get them? Li Xian couldn't stand it any longer as he teased. Joseph's expression turned nasty. Before he could flare up, Li Benyu said, Gentlemen, the family head is still waiting to see you. I'll take you over. With that said, Li Benyu pulled Li Benyi and left the shop with Zhou Wen and Li Xian. Chapter 996. After leaving the shop, Li Xian asked Li Benyu, Brother Li, if it's convenient, can you tell me what's going on with this Joseph? This. Li Benyu was somewhat hesitant. However, Li Benyi said angrily, Why can't I say it? That Joseph is an ingrate. After Li Benyi's explanation, Zhou Wen and company finally learned the details. Just as they had guessed, Joseph's mother and Li Benyu's wife were biological sisters. Later, when Joseph was 12 or 13, their parents entered a dimensional zone and never returned. Joseph became an orphan. Therefore, Li Benyu and his wife adopted Joseph. Although they couldn't say that they treated him the same as Li Benyi, they tried their best to take care of him. They allowed him to live a carefree life, and even gave him all sorts of resources and opportunities. On the surface, Joseph was respectful to them. When he grew up, he even helped them run the factory, but to their surprise, he had secretly done something, causing many of the factory's funds to go missing. It nearly caused the factory to close down. Only then did Li Benyu suspect Joseph, and find out that there was something wrong with him. If it wasn't for his deceased mother, sending him to jail would have been enough. As for the details, Li Benyi didn't say much. However, he could tell that Joseph had definitely done more than one thing. Now, he even had designs on their mythical companion egg. He was extremely shameless. Li Xian and Zhou Wen were taken aback when they heard that. They never expected such a person to exist in the world. They hadn't heard of this from rumors. Today they had seen Joseph's face with their own eyes. It was no wonder Li Benyi hated him so much. Such a person actually caught the eye of a guardian. From the looks of it, the guardian's selection criteria aren't that impressive, Li Xian said. Li Benyi curled his lips and said, "Do you know what Joseph's guardian's name is? His name is Lai." The guardian ranked 14th? Li Xian and Zhou Wen immediately thought of the guardian on the rankings. Yes. Although Joseph has never said what his guardian's name is, he can't hide it anymore. I'm guessing that he must have obtained this guardian in the maze of lies. Whatever guardian he looks for, it's obvious that Joseph and his guardian aren't good people, Li Benyi said. Zhou Wen had previously heard from Sadie and company about the Maze of Lies dimensional zone. It was a very famous dimensional zone near Frost City. In the Maze of Lies, one absolutely couldn't speak the truth. Once they did, they would be killed by the taboo power of the Maze of Lies. Therefore, humans who entered the maze would typically seal their mouths to prevent themselves from speaking, to prevent themselves from triggering the taboo power. After all, it was impossible for an ordinary human to not tell the truth. "Dad, why did you stop Zhou Wen? Let Zhou Wen use Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui to defeat him. Let's see how arrogant he can be," Li Benyi said. "After all, he has a guardian. Don't be too calculative with him." Li Benyi was actually afraid that Zhou Wen would be injured. Although Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui might be very strong, just as Joseph said, people now felt that guardians were invincible. Companion beasts were no match for them. Otherwise, how could every guardian on the rankings be ranked at the top? None of the companion beasts ranked higher than the guardians. Therefore, Li Benyi stopped them in time to prevent Zhou Wen and company from being injured by the guardian. So what if he's a guardian? Tyrant Behemoth alone can defeat him, much less Tai Sui, Li Benyi said. So in your hearts, my guardian is so weak. It's no wonder Uncle isn't willing to lend me the companion egg. So you look down on my guardian. At some point in time, Joseph had followed them and heard Li Benyi's words. Little E was just saying. Don't take the child's words seriously. Li Benyi had no choice but to say. No, Little E has a huge misunderstanding of my guardian and me. From the looks of it, I have to resolve this misunderstanding. Joseph looked at Li Benyi and said, Little E, since you think his companion beast is stronger than my guardian, why don't we make a bet? Let him fight me. If he wins, it will prove that what you said is correct. I won't mention borrowing companion eggs in the future. If he loses, why don't you lend me your companion egg? After Joseph said that, he added with a smile, Since you are so confident in his companion beast, don't tell me you don't dare to agree to my challenge? Without waiting for Li Benyi to speak, Li Benyi said, Of course I dare, but Zhou Wen and company are guests. I can't trouble them. Joseph looked at Zhou Wen and said, Little E is so confident in you. Don't you want to help him? Li Benyi hurriedly interrupted and said, Joseph, they are the family head's guests. Don't mess around. However, Joseph curled his lips and said, What family head's guests? Aren't they just friends of Lance and Sadie? Lance has already been defeated by me. When I'm free in the future, I'll defeat Sadie and let everyone in the family know who the true genius is. Are you sure you want to challenge me? Zhou Wen suddenly asked. Of course. If Little E is willing to let you represent him, I don't mind letting him know that only guardians are truly powerful existences in this world, Joseph said. All right, wait a moment. Zhou Wen took out his phone and sent a message to Lance, Sadie, and company. After all, he was a guest invited by Lance and Sadie. It didn't seem good to kill the guardian of the ultimate family clan here, so he told the two of them first. Joseph was a distance away from Zhou, but his eyes were very good. He realized that the friend's profile picture that Zhou was communicating with belonged to Lance. "You only want to investigate me now? Isn't it too late?" Joseph said contemptuously. It didn't take him much effort to defeat Lance because Lance was only at the epic stage. He didn't even have a mythical companion beast. It was very easy for him to win with a guardian. Therefore, he was very sure that Lance didn't have any information to reveal to Zhou. However, when Joseph saw Zhou's message, he nearly blew his top. "There's a person named Joseph in your family who wants to challenge me. As he's a member of your family after all, I want to ask for your opinion. Regarding the 3 options below, which one is more suitable? Please reply as soon as possible. A. Beat him to death. B. Cripple him. C. Knock him out." Then, Joseph realized that Zhou had copied the message and sent it to Sadie. "Beat." Soon, Lance and Sadie replied. Their answers were the same, A. Chapter 997. Lance and Sadie gave an answer of A. Clearly, they were telling Zhou that there was no need to have any qualms. Since they didn't mind, Zhou didn't need to have any qualms. Joseph was really annoying. Furthermore, he could destroy a guardian in passing. There was no reason for him to let him off. After obtaining the answer, Zhou looked at Li Benyi and asked, "Are you willing to let me fight him in your place?" "Of course. Please let him know that a guardian isn't anything impressive," Li Benyi said excitedly. "Didn't you want to challenge me? You can do it now," Zhou said to Joseph. "Are you really confident that you don't even think anything of a guardian?" Joseph curled his lips in disdain before looking at Li Benyi and asking, "Uncle, can he represent you? If he loses, will you really lend me that mythical companion egg?" Li Benyi was somewhat hesitant, but Li Benyi said to him, "Daddy, please agree. Zhou has the strongest Tai Sui and tyrant behemoth. He won't lose. Please, Daddy." Li Benyi stroked Li Benyi's head. "All right, I agree." In fact, Li Benyi wasn't as confident in Zhou as Li Benyi was. However, no matter how precious a mythical companion egg was, it ultimately belonged to Li Benyi in the future. There were some things that he should experience. It was naturally best if Zhou won. Even if he lost, he could teach Li Benyi a lesson that he would never forget. Although he might lose a mythical companion egg, Li Benyi felt that this wasn't an unacceptable price. If Zhou knew what Li Benyi was thinking, he would probably sigh. The son of a rich family was really blessed. "Uncle, it's not that I don't believe you, but there are some things that have to be written down. Otherwise, it's better if we don't explain it clearly and hurt our family's feelings," Joseph said. Li Benyi frowned. Before he could say anything, Zhou said, "Yes, we should write down a contract. If there are any losses in the duel, both parties should be responsible for it to avoid trouble." "Yes, lest Joseph cries from being beaten up and complain to the clan leader," Li Benyi said. "Also, if I lose, you can take the companion egg." "What if you lose?" Zhou asked Li Benyi. "I won't mention borrowing companion eggs in the future," Joseph said without blushing. Zhou wanted to say something, but Li Benyi shook his head and said, "Forget it. It's fine as long as there's no more trouble in the future." Zhou felt that Li Benyi had his own considerations. If he took Joseph's item now, it would be troublesome if he came to pester him in the future. Since Li Benyi had already said so, Zhou didn't say anything else. Joseph quickly produced 2 contracts. After Zhou and company saw that there were no problems, both parties signed and pressed their fingerprints. "Since it's a fair duel, let's fight in the family's combat arena tomorrow. It'll also let everyone know that the great era of the Guardians has arrived," Joseph said arrogantly after putting away the contract. Before the Guardian appeared, Zhou could be said to be the top representative of the younger generation. He had powerful companion beasts and excellent talent. Among the Federation's 6 families, No one didn't know Zhou name. Even the older generation was very afraid of Zhou. He wanted to fight Zhou not only because he wanted the mythical companion egg, but also because he wanted to tell everyone that he, Joseph, was a true genius. He was someone recognized by God. The so-called geniuses in the past were just bragging by humans. They didn't obtain God's recognition at all. Therefore, he chose to fight in the family's combat arena. Furthermore, he had to wait until tomorrow to let everyone in the ultimate family clan know of this matter. At the same time, he could personally defeat Zhou in front of the family's elders and peers. He had absolute confidence in the guardian and believed that only a guardian could defeat a guardian. Zhou didn't mind and directly agreed. Then, Joseph left excitedly. It could be imagined that he would quickly inform everyone he knew to watch the battle tomorrow. In fact, even if Joseph didn't publicize it, Frost City was only that big. There were no secrets that could be hidden. Soon, everyone would know. Zhou, do you need our help to prepare anything? Li Benyi felt that Zhou was helping him fight, so he had to do something. If possible, take us to the nearby dimensional zones to take a look. We just came to Frost City and are very interested in the dimensional zones here, Zhou said. Don't you need to prepare for tomorrow's battle? Li Benyi asked. I'm already prepared. There's no need to prepare at the last minute, Zhou said. That's right. With Tai Sui and Tyrant Behemoth around, we can definitely defeat Joseph's guardian. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's battle. Li Benyi wore a look of anticipation. Under the Li father and son's lead, Zhou, Li Xian, Feng Qian, and Yer went to a few relatively famous dimensional zones. Unfortunately, Zhou didn't discover the tiny palm symbol in the first few dimensional zones. When he arrived at the Maze of Lies, he accidentally discovered a tiny palm symbol. Is this the dimensional zone where Joseph obtained a guardian? Li Xian asked curiously. That's right. The Maze of Lies is very special. Make sure not to tell the truth after entering. For example, if you say your name, it will be the truth. You will be killed by the taboo inside. Li Benyi introduced the situation inside the Maze of Lies. Zhou took out his phone and casually took a picture of the tiny palm symbol. Soon, the Maze of Lies dungeon was downloaded. According to the Li father and son, the Maze of Lies was rather dangerous. Apart from the taboo of not being able to tell the truth, the dimensional creatures inside also had very strange powers. For example, there was a kind of mischief clown that would hide in the maze and suddenly call your name. If you answered, it would be equivalent to telling the truth, and you would be killed by the taboo of the Maze of Lies. Apart from using the taboo power, the mischief clown also had some strange skills, such as elastic balls. If one was hit by an elastic ball, their body would bounce uncontrollably, making it difficult to dodge its attack. There were also many strange dimensional creatures inside. According to the legends here, the Maze of Lies dimensional zone was likely owned by a very famous deity. It was the legendary god of mischief and lies, Loki. Legend had it that in the deepest depths of the Maze of Lies, there was a magical mischief mask. As long as one wore the mask, they would have Loki's divine powers. Of course, this was only a legend. No one had really seen the mask. Chapter 998. After circling Frost City, Zhou felt that his Glimmer Life soul was showing signs of breaking through, but it was just a little short. For some reason, he couldn't break through to a perfect body. Could it be that I can't advance the Glimmer Life soul just by going to new places? Zhou thought of all sorts of possibilities, but he couldn't figure out the problem. In Frost City, he only downloaded the Maze of Lies dungeon. There were many famous dimensional zones in the North District, but they had to leave Frost City. Zhou and company couldn't go for the time being. After returning to his residence, Zhou realized that Lance, Sadie, and Gully were waiting for them. Lance didn't look like he was injured, but he was in a wheelchair. His leg injury was likely very serious. A beautiful girl stood behind the wheelchair. It looked like she had pushed Lance over. "I've finally waited for you. Unfortunately, I can't fight you for the time being," Lance said helplessly. "Is your leg all right? Do you need help?" Zhou Wen's primordial human sovereign was still very effective in healing injuries. Lance shook his head and said, "I'll be fine after a few days of rest. It's not a big problem. As for you, you have to be careful when fighting Joseph. His abilities— no. I should say that his guardian abilities are somewhat strange." "How strange?" Zhou wasn't a fanatic who pursued the thrill of battle, so he knew every bit of Joseph's guardian abilities. "I attacked his body with all my might, but in the end, all the injuries he suffered were transferred to me." Lance recounted the situation. "Is it reflected damage?" Zhou asked. "No, if it was reflected damage, I would have known it back then. His ability is that after I'm done, the injuries on his body will run to my body. It's as if those injuries are alive and can run on their own," Lance said. "Then he really has some special abilities." Zhou pondered as he thought about how to deal with such an ability. "However, if it's you, it shouldn't be a problem. I'm looking forward to your performance tomorrow," Lance said with a smile. "If I destroy his guardian, will your family really be fine?" Zhou found it odd and couldn't help but ask. "No problem," Lance answered with certainty. "From the looks of it, that Joseph is really infuriating. After all, he's someone with a guardian. Why doesn't the family value him?" Li Xian said. "The family also wants to value him, but unfortunately, he isn't on the same side as the family. He has secretly done many things that harm the family's interests. He thinks it's flawless, but in fact, the elders in the family are already aware of doing." "I see." Only then did Zhou understand why Sadie and Lance had answered so readily. It turned out that their family had originally planned on dealing with Joseph, but they were somewhat afraid of Joseph's guardian. Furthermore, Joseph was ultimately a member of the Ultimate Family clan, so they couldn't make things too ugly and make the other families in the North District laugh at them. From the looks of it, having powerful strength doesn't mean you will enjoy special treatment. It's no wonder Joseph didn't even spare Li Benyi's mythical companion egg, Zhou said with a sigh. Uncle Li and Aunt have raised Joseph for nearly 10 years and treat him like their own son. They have invested all sorts of resources into him, but what he has done has left even us disappointed, much less Uncle Li and Aunt, Sadie said. After chatting for a while, Lance and company returned. They agreed to celebrate with Zhou after his victory tomorrow. Zhou lay in bed, took out his phone, and opened the Maze of Lies dungeon that he had just downloaded today. After entering the game, the blood-colored avatar appeared in front of an ancient castle. The castle looked very strange, like an ancient amusement park. All the buildings were very strange. Furthermore, the ancient castle's door looked like a clown's face. The door was the clown's laughing mouth. Entering the ancient castle was like being devoured by the clown. "Are you a man or a woman?" A line of words suddenly appeared on the door. A pop-up box popped up in-game with 2 options, male and female. Zhou naturally chose a man, but following that, the blood-colored avatar exploded on the spot and the screen immediately turned black. Holy sh*t, so this is also the taboo power of the Maze of Lies? Zhou immediately understood that he couldn't choose this way in the Maze of Lies. Zhou wanted to know the various strange things in the Maze of Lies, so he didn't use the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder. He dripped his blood to revive and arrived in front of the Maze of Lies' door again. "Are you a good person or a bad person?" However, this time the question on the door changed. It was different from what he had seen before. Zhou immediately felt stumped. He felt that he wasn't considered a good person, but he didn't seem to have done anything too bad. He probably couldn't be considered a bad person. However, there were only 2 options on the phone. Zhou had to choose one. "I should barely be considered a good person, right? Then, according to the Maze of Lies, I should choose a bad person, right?" Zhouwen chose the bad person's answer. Bam! The blood-colored avatar exploded on the spot again. The armor and essence energy on his body were useless. How is that possible? Am I a bad person? Zhouwen found it unbelievable that the taboo power of the Maze of Lies had determined that he was a bad person. Zhouwen gloomily dripped his blood to revive again, allowing the blood-colored avatar to arrive in front of the Maze of Lies' door. What was even more depressing was that the question on the Maze of Lies' door changed again. Is your girlfriend left-handed or right-handed? F*CKU. I'm not playing anymore. Zhouwen activated the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder and pushed open the door to enter the Maze of Lies. With the protection of the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder, the taboo power didn't work on the blood-colored avatar as he successfully entered the maze. The first thing he saw after entering the castle-like maze was a huge merry-go-round. The diameter of this merry-go-round was probably at least 30 meters. At that moment, the merry-go-round was spinning as the wooden horses rose and fell. On one of the wooden horses, Zhouwen saw a puppet clown in a clown costume. He sat on the wooden horse and held 3 different colored balls in his hand. He tossed them around as though he was performing on stage. Is this the Mischief Clown? Zhouwen had already heard from Li Benyi that Mischief Clown was an epic dimensional creature with very unique abilities. It wasn't difficult for Zhouwen to kill Mischief Clown, but he wanted to see what Mischief Clown's abilities were like. If the skills were really good, he could consider using them for fusion in the future. When the clown, who was tossing the balls, saw the blood-colored avatar, he threw the red, yellow, and blue ball at it. Chapter 999. Zhouwen summoned the great Might Vajra Bull and got it to block in front. With a boom, after the red ball collided with the great Might Vajra Bull, it immediately turned into a ball of flames that enveloped the great Might Vajra Bull's entire body. Thankfully, the great Might Vajra Bull's body was strong enough. The epic flames didn't affect it at all. Seeing that the red ball was useless, the clown threw out the blue ball. After the blue ball shattered, it formed a huge ice fog that could freeze people into ice. Unfortunately, this was only the power of the epic stage. The great Might Vajra Bull trembled, and the frost on its body immediately fell to the ground. It couldn't injure it at all. Finally, the clown threw out the yellow ball again. This time, after the yellow ball shattered, there was no fire or ice. There was only a cloud of smoke and nothing else. This yellow ball should be the so-called elastic ball, right? From the looks of it, it's useless. It has no effect on mythical creatures at all. As Zhouwen was thinking, the great Might Vajra Bull raised its hooves and took a step forward. With this step, the great Might Vajra Bull's body seemed to have a spring attached to it. Its body immediately jumped high into the air. When it landed heavily on the ground and bounced even higher. The great Might Vajra Bull waved its hooves randomly in the air, but it couldn't control its body. Its body seemed to have become a bouncing ball as it bounced around the ancient castle. Although the strength of the puppet clown couldn't injure the great Might Vajra Bull, it left it in a sorry state. This skill is interesting. Zhouwen suddenly realized that this skill was pretty good. It could actually affect mythical creatures. However, this skill was clearly useless against the Mischief Clown. The great Might Vajra Bull quickly adapted to the elasticity before transforming into its 1,000-armed, bull-headed state. A golden beam of light shot out from its hand and blasted the clown apart. Zhouwen circled the maze and encountered quite a number of Mischief Clowns. Therefore, he killed everyone he saw, hoping to obtain a few Mischief Clown companion eggs to use later for fusion. This skill was useless against Mischief Clowns, but it might be useful on some powerful pet. As he grinded the clowns, he searched the maze. However, in this maze that resembled a playground, there were clowns everywhere, but he didn't see any other dimensional creatures. Strange, Li Benyi said that there are clearly many strange dimensional creatures here. Why do I only see clowns? Zhouwen was somewhat puzzled, but he couldn't find any other dimensional creatures. While Zhou was grinding dungeons, the news of his battle with Joseph had already spread throughout Frost City. It wasn't just the members of the Ultimate Family clan. Even the other families and ordinary people in Frost City knew of the news. Ordinary people weren't too familiar with Zhou name, but some of the more powerful families knew what it represented. Before the Guardian appeared, Zhou was synonymous with invincibility among the younger generation. But now, with a Guardian, no one could guarantee that Zhou could still be as invincible as before. The top 14 on the leaderboard were all Guardians. Such a battle record was so dazzling that it made people unable to ignore the power of the Guardians. Although Joseph's Lie was only ranked 14th, it still suppressed all the companion beasts that fought alone. Furthermore, Lie had never fought other Guardians before. Perhaps its combat strength was even higher than its actual ranking. Therefore, when the next day lit up, many people in Frost City came to the arena. However, most of them were here to see the Guardian. Only a few had any expectations for Zhou. When Zhou arrived at the arena, he saw that it was already packed with people. Even the walls were filled with people, and the entrance was packed to the point that not even a drop of water could trickle through. "Brother, can you make way and let us pass?" Li Xian led the way, but after squeezing for a long time, he failed to squeeze in. There were just too many people inside. "Let you pass? Do I still want to go over? Is it useful?" "If it's useful, I'm already watching the duel inside. If you want to watch the duel, slowly squeeze in. Don't keep thinking about this and that," said the burly man in front. Li Xian thought to himself, if Zhou doesn't enter, how are you going to watch the duel? He naturally couldn't say that, so all he could do was continue squeezing in. Thankfully, Li Xian still had a solution. He released some smelly goo and immediately, the people nearby couldn't help but squeeze to the side. Finally, they had more space to move around. However, this move of killing 800 people and sacrificing 1,000 of their own, they didn't have it easy either. It wasn't easy for them to squeeze in, but there was still a sea of people inside. It was unknown why the people of Frost City were so free that they came here early in the morning to watch their duel. From the looks of it, that punk Joseph has put in a lot of effort. He found so many people to kill you in front of everyone. Li Xian saw through Joseph's thoughts. "Actually, I don't like having so many spectators," Zhou said. The few of them continued squeezing in. Thankfully, Gully discovered them through the surveillance cameras and sent someone to bring them in. "Why did you enter through the main door? Why didn't you take the special underground passageway?" Gully asked Zhou and company in puzzlement. "There's a special passageway?" The three of them were taken aback. "You said there was no need to receive them. I thought you knew. Let's not talk about this. Let's go to the lounge and prepare." "That punk Joseph can't wait any longer," Gully said. He was indeed impatient. The two of them should have gone on stage at the same time, but Joseph had already appeared in the arena early. Furthermore, this fellow was even giving a speech. "Although I grew up in Frost City, I believe many people don't know my name. My name is Joseph, and I'm a member of the Ultimate Family clan. As a person chosen by God and a person who has signed a contract with a guardian, I will represent the deities to protect this Frost City. No matter what difficulties I encounter, even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will fight foreign enemies to the death." It's a pity that this fellow isn't a politician. Li Xian curled his lips when he heard Joseph's speech. However, the ordinary citizens who didn't know Joseph let out cheers after hearing his words. Some even shouted Joseph's name. From the looks of it, Joseph had successfully fooled many people. "What a worrisome fellow," Gully said gloomily when they arrived at the lounge. Gully said gloomily when they arrived at the lounge and saw Sadie, Lance, and company. "Zhou, you will definitely be able to defeat him and let those people know how powerful Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui are, right?" Li Benyi asked Zhou. "Of course. I still have some experience in killing guardians. Don't worry. Zhou rubbed Li Benyi's head before walking towards the passageway. The moment Zhou walked out of the passageway, he immediately heard a tsunami of boos. Regardless of whether it was right or wrong, from the perspective of the people of Frost City, Zhou was an outsider. They were naturally more willing to support the local Joseph and treat Zhou as an enemy. Sogu. Chapter 1000. Upon seeing Zhou enter the arena, Joseph's eyes narrowed slightly. He waved his hand and said, "Isn't your tyrant behemoth very strong? Then I'll wait for you to summon it first. If I attack first, you won't even have the chance to summon a companion beast." The moment that was said, the spectators cheered. Regardless of whether Joseph had such an ability or not, such a domineering declaration made the blood of the locals who supported Joseph boil. Furthermore, the people here were valiant. It was a place that revered martial arts. "This person really hasn't died before," Li Xian said with a smile. Feng Qiuyan pondered for a moment and said, "With Joseph's personality, he must have a motive for doing so. Previously, Lance said that Joseph has the ability to transfer damage. I think he plans on using this move. That's why I said that he hasn't died before. He actually dares to use a move that he has already used in front of Zhou. He probably doesn't even know how he died," Li Xian said with a smile. "That's true. Since Coach already knows that he has such an ability, it's too naive of him to use this move against Coach," Feng Qiuyan said with a nod. Seeing that Li Xian and Feng Qiuyan were certain that Zhou would win, Li Benyu couldn't help but frown and say, "The Guardian's strength is currently the strongest strength after all. Furthermore, Zhou hasn't seen Lance and Joseph's battle with his own eyes. It's better to be careful. It's best to summon more companion beasts to test the waters." Li Xian and Feng Qiuyan didn't say a word. Lance smiled and said, "Uncle Li, don't worry. If he already knows the move and can still injure him, he wouldn't be Zhou." Li Benyu couldn't help but be alarmed when he heard Lance say so. Lance was a very hard-working person, and his talent was unparalleled. Although he had lost to Joseph, most people in the Ultimate Family clan didn't think that it was a true defeat. This was because Lance didn't contract a guardian and didn't use a mythical companion beast. He had fought Joseph under unfair circumstances, so the Ultimate Family clan's attention to Lance didn't decrease at all. Li Benyu had never seen Lance praise someone else in such a tone. Even a genius like Sadie had never been praised by Lance in such a manner. Li Benyi said confidently, "Dad, don't worry. With Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui around, Zhou will definitely win." "Really?" Li Benyu looked at Zhou skeptically. He didn't know what kind of magic Zhou had to make these people have such confidence in him. It could be said that they were blind. In the arena, Zhou wasn't angered by Joseph's provocation. He said without a change in expression, "There's no need to use Tyrant Behemoth to deal with you. I just need to summon a companion beast." The moment Zhou said that, everyone booed. To the locals of Frost City, Zhou's words were too arrogant. Although Joseph didn't dare say that he was invincible, he had a guardian after all. On the rankings, only a guardian's ranking could exceed a guardian's. Even if Lai was defeated, it wasn't something any companion beast could defeat. Is that so? Then summon any companion beast. I'll stand here motionless. Let's see how you defeat me, Joseph said coldly as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. The people of Frost City cheered for Joseph, but Zhou only smiled. "Are you standing still? I hope you mean what you say. You aren't qualified to make me move." Joseph continued provoking him. He wasn't doing it purely for his reputation, but to infuriate Zhou so that he would use all his strength. The more heavily injured he was, the stronger the guardian could unleash. Lai had a skill called hypocritical transaction. When he used this skill, the damage he suffered would be transferred to the opponent who injured him. However, hypocritical transaction had a limited time. It only had a few seconds, so he wanted to infuriate Zhou Wen and make Zhou Wen's companion beast attack with all its might. The power that was released in a few seconds might directly kill the other party's companion beast after it was transferred. He wanted Zhou Wen to lose a mythical companion beast first. This was the price Zhou Wen had to pay for underestimating him. The reason Joseph dared to challenge Zhou Wen was also because of this move. This was a skill that countered Tyrant Behemoth. The stronger Tyrant Behemoth was, the greater the chance of its death. Zhou Wen didn't say anything else as he summoned a companion beast. Everyone looked at the short sword beside Zhou Wen in surprise. It was a crimson scabbard about a foot long. The hilt was like a phoenix's head and looked extremely exquisite. They had never seen such a companion beast before, so they didn't know its origins. However, they were somewhat disappointed that it wasn't Tyrant Behemoth that was summoned. Back then, they admired Tyrant Behemoth's invincible and domineering stance. They never expected Zhou Wen to summon a short sword. It didn't look domineering at all. Li Benyi, Lance, and company were also very curious. They didn't know what was so special about the short sword that Zhou Wen had summoned and if it could really be effective against Joseph. What companion beast is that sword? Is it very powerful? Why didn't you use Tyrant Behemoth and Tai Sui? Li Benyi looked at Lance in puzzlement, hoping that Lance could answer his questions. Lance looked at the bronze sparrow sword in front of Zhou Wen and said, "From the aura of that sword, it should be a fire elemental mythical companion beast. With a sword and a fire elemental weapon, there's no doubt that it's a companion beast with extremely high offensive strength. However, Joseph has the ability to transfer damage. Using such a companion beast to attack Joseph is a very risky action. However, Zhou Wen definitely has his own plans. Let's just watch." Li Benyi also became a little nervous after hearing what Lance said. Li Benyu's judgment was the same as Lance's. He also felt that it was clearly irrational for Zhou Wen to use such a companion beast to fight Joseph. Against an ability that could exchange damage, the best way was to use some companion beasts with restraining powers to restrain the other party's body. This was a more normal method. Clearly, Zhou Wen didn't have such plans. "Are you ready?" Zhou Wen asked Joseph as he held the bronze sparrow sword. "Anytime. However, such a crappy sword probably can't injure me. It's best you summon Tyrant Behemoth," Joseph mocked. "Since you're ready, don't move," Zhou Wen said as he drew his sword. As Zhou Wen spoke, he drew his sword. The scarlet bronze sparrow sword tore out of its scabbard and, with a tornado-like inferno, it spun at high speeds like a drill bit at Joseph. With the augmentation of Vajra drill, the bronze sparrow sword instantly arrived in front of Joseph and stabbed into his chest. "Nice one." Joseph wasn't alarmed but delighted. Such a violent attack meant that the sword-shaped companion beast was indeed very strong. Being able to kill this companion beast first was enough to teach Zhou Wen a lesson. Chapter 1001. A faint fog seemed to appear on Joseph's mysterious gray armor. The bronze sparrow sword pierced through the armor and his chest, and the tip of the sword was revealed behind him. At the same time, flames burned crazily. Die! Joseph felt that such an attack was strong enough. He hardened his heart and wanted to transfer his injuries to the bronze sparrow sword. As the bronze sparrow sword had injured him, he could only transfer it to the bronze sparrow sword and not Zhou Wen. However, before he could use the hypocritical transaction to transfer his injuries, the bronze sparrow sword had already exploded. A terrifying explosive force exploded in Joseph's body like a nuclear bomb. No good. Joseph's expression changed drastically. The bronze sparrow sword's explosion instantly made him lose the target to transfer damage. Ignoring the fact that he couldn't transfer his injuries, even Lai probably couldn't withstand such a terrifying explosion. Almost instantly, Joseph activated Lai's Wheel of Destiny's power, False God Statue. Boom! Joseph's body was blown up in the flames and scattered everywhere. Everyone watching the battle was stunned. No one had expected such a situation to happen. Thankfully, Joseph's figure suddenly appeared in a corner of the arena and knelt on the ground. He hadn't been killed by the explosion. What had been killed was a false god statue that resembled an avatar. However, due to his inability to transfer the injuries he had suffered previously, his chest was dripping with blood. His face was pale, and the situation looked extremely bad. In the silent arena, Jowen held the bronze sparrow sword's scabbard. Flames spewed out from the scabbard and condensed a new bronze sparrow sword. It looked flawless. Wow! Too powerful. What companion beast is that? It's so cool. I've decided to make such a companion beast figurine in the future. Li Benyi exclaimed excitedly. Li Benyu wore a strange expression. Zhou Wen's strike had indeed exceeded his imagination. Didn't you say you wouldn't move? Zhou Wen asked Joseph. You tricked. Joseph's expression turned ugly as he gritted his teeth and stood up. He stared at Zhou Wen and continued, Don't be too smug. Schemes can only succeed temporarily. In front of true strength, schemes are useless. I'll let you know what true strength is. With that said, the guardian armor on Joseph's body emitted a mysterious fog. His injured chest and armor rapidly recovered in the mysterious fog. In the blink of an eye, he recovered to his original state as though he had never been injured. What a powerful recovery ability! It's actually stronger than my self-healing ability? Li Xian widened his eyes in disbelief. Looks like that shouldn't be ordinary self-healing, right? Feng Qiuyan muttered. Sadie saw it more clearly with the eye of Odin and said, It really doesn't look like self-healing. It's more like some kind of time reversal ability, returning time to before he was injured. That works too? Isn't this too much of a bug? Such a scumbag actually has such a powerful guardian. How depressing, Li Xian said. Lance pondered for a moment and said, I don't think it's that easy to use the powerful power of time reversal. Perhaps Joseph will need to pay a certain price. What kind of price will it be? Li Xian asked. I don't know. Lance shook his head. In the spectator platform, many people from Frost City began shouting Joseph's name in unison. To be able to escape from such a huge explosion and have his injuries instantly heal, he did look as powerful as a god. However, they no longer dared to underestimate Zhou Wen. The strike from the bronze sparrow sword was truly terrifying. Even now, people still felt their scalps tingle when they thought of that strike. Zhou Wen, are you prepared to suffer the wrath of the Chosen One? Joseph stared coldly at Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen summoned his armor and wore it. He said with a smile, Since you can't abide by the agreement, I'll stand here motionless and let you attack. Don't worry and attack. I've always been a man of my word. I won't run. These words made Joseph's expression turn nasty. He originally imagined that he could use the hypocritical deal to teach Zhou Wen a lesson, but he never expected Zhou Wen to counter him. Now, Joseph knew that he had to suppress Zhou Wen to protect the image he had painstakingly built up in Frost City. You are courting death. Joseph's figure appeared in front of Zhou Wen like a phantom as he punched at his chest. Unlike ordinary fist techniques, there was a ring on Joseph's middle finger in front of his fist. There was a spike on the ring. It was a poisonous spike that came with Li's armor. Coupled with the use of essence energy and sweet talk fist, once the poisonous spike stabbed into the body, the poison produced could make one hallucinate. Even if Joseph didn't kill Zhou Wen, he would still fall into an illusion. If his willpower wasn't strong enough, he would commit suicide even without Joseph's help. Clang! However, when Joseph's punch struck Zhou Wen, the poisonous spike failed to penetrate the armor at all. Under the powerful impact, the poisonous spike nearly snapped, but the armor wasn't injured at all. Impossible? How can he have such a powerful defense? Joseph didn't believe that his guardian's power couldn't break through Zhou Wen's armor. Immediately, Joseph moved quickly and brandished his fist. He used all his strength and punched Zhou Wen again and again. Zhou was wearing the shell dragon armor and had activated absolute defense. No matter how Joseph attacked, he couldn't break through the armor. No matter how strong Lai was, it hadn't activated its terror form after all. It was too difficult to break through absolute defense. Back then, even Night Tharch couldn't penetrate absolute defense, much less Joseph. The people in the spectators' stand were dumbfounded. Zhou really stood there motionless and allowed Joseph to attack. In their eyes, Joseph, who was like a god, was now like a weak child. No matter how he attacked, he couldn't injure Zhou at all. That fellow. What's going on? Many people had strange thoughts arise in their minds as they looked at Zhou, who was dressed in blue crystal armor that seemed to be protected by the stars in the sky. Could it be that the strength of a companion beast is really stronger than a guardian's? Although they were unwilling to believe it deep down, seeing Joseph fight like a child against an adult, the image of a guardian suddenly didn't seem that lofty in their hearts. What companion beast is this? It's so powerful. Joseph can't even leave a mark on the armor. It's just too powerful. Li Benyi's eyes lit up. Yer glanced at Li Benyi and wondered why this fellow was so noisy. It was as though he had never seen anything before. Chapter 1002. There was dead silence in the stands as everyone stared blankly at the battle in the arena. Perhaps it couldn't be called a battle. It was like a child challenging a giant. Even if the giant stood there motionless, the child couldn't injure the giant at all. Just as Joseph had said, it seemed to be the difference in absolute strength. Why? Why is this happening? Why can't I break it? Joseph changed all sorts of skills in a bid to break through Zhou's armor. However, it was completely useless. No matter what skills he used, they were all blocked by the crystal-like armor. He couldn't injure Zhou at all. Joseph's heart sank to rock bottom. He had never thought that he would lose to Zhou, nor did he believe that he, who had a guardian, couldn't even defeat a human without a contracted guardian. However, the truth was right in front of him. His heart was already trembling, and his hands trembled even more because he couldn't see any hope of victory. Now, Joseph was somewhat regretful. He regretted challenging Zhou. Why did this darn Zhou have so many terrifying companion beasts? I can kill you, but you can't kill me. From the looks of it, there's no need to continue fighting. There's no victor in this battle, Joseph suddenly said as he retreated. He still wanted to preserve his last bit of dignity. However, even the locals who had previously supported him couldn't take it anymore. All of them felt their faces burn. A loss is a loss. What do you mean by a tie? Can't you be a man? A hot-tempered man shouted from the stands. This was also what many people thought. They felt that Joseph would fight to the end. Even if he lost, he wouldn't be as embarrassed as he was now. Zhou looked at Joseph without any expression on his face. All he did was slowly put away the shell dragon armor and bronze sparrow sword. He held the bamboo blade and said, I won't use any companion beast. I'll only use this essence gold bamboo blade to fight you. Do you dare fight me? Instantly, the entire arena fell silent. Everyone suspected if there was something wrong with their ears, or if Zhou had gone mad. The highest level of a human was only at the epic stage. If he didn't use a mythical companion beast, he had no right to fight a guardian. They admitted that Zhou's companion beast was very strong. It was invincible. Without using Tyrant Behemoth, it completely suppressed Joseph, who had a guardian. However, this didn't mean that they believed that Zhou, who didn't have a companion beast, was qualified to fight Joseph. Are you sure there's nothing wrong with his brain? Li Benyu was also stunned. He was originally rejoicing over Zhou's victory, but who knew that Zhou would say such crazy words? Lance also stared at Zhou with a burning gaze. He knew what Zhou wanted to do because he had done it before, but he hadn't succeeded. Of course he's not crazy. He just wants to prove that guardians aren't impressive. We humans can defeat guardians with our own strength, Sadie said with a complicated expression. Although this sounded a little too terrifying, Sadie wasn't surprised that Zhou could do such a thing. But can humans really defeat the Guardians? Li Benyu couldn't believe it. Li Benyi also found it unbelievable as he muttered to himself, is it possible to use a human's body to defeat a Guardian? In Frost City, apart from Li Xian, Feng Qiuyan, and Yer, probably no one believed that Zhou could do it. The strongest humans were only at the epic stage. There was a huge gap between them and the mythical stage. As for Guardians, they were the cream of the crop at the mythical stage. The gap between them was just too great, so great that they couldn't see any hope. Is he crazy? Without a companion beast, he's just at the epic stage. What right does he have to fight a Guardian? Victory makes people blind. I think victory makes people crazy. The people in the stands snapped to their senses and disgust. Clearly, they felt that Zhou had probably been blinded by victory. Are you really not going to use a companion beast to fight me? Joseph looked at Zhou doubtfully. He couldn't believe that a person like Zhou would make such a retarded decision. If I use a companion beast, even if it's only at the legendary stage, it'll be considered my loss. Zhou then said, however, I have a condition. What condition? Joseph felt that this was normal. Zhou didn't care about such an idiot. Even if I lose if I use a companion beast, this battle can't end before I admit defeat. Do you dare accept the challenge? Zhou had been observing Li's abilities. This was indeed a very strong guardian. Although it wasn't the kind of strength with absolute strength, its abilities were very unique. Zhou was confident that he could defeat Joseph, who had Li, but he wasn't confident that he could completely destroy Li before Joseph admitted defeat. Therefore, Zhou wanted to force Joseph not to admit defeat. He had to fight him to the end. Everyone looked at Zhou in shock, believing that he was definitely crazy. How was this a condition? He was basically sending himself to the gallows. Joseph stared at Zhou with bloodshot eyes. He felt that he had been greatly insulted. There's no need to beat around the bush. Don't you just want to say that it won't end until one of us is dead? I'll fulfill your wish. We won't stop until one of us dies. However, if you use a companion beast, it will be your loss. I want you to commit suicide. Joseph's eyes were red as his face couldn't help but contort. His voice was filled with hostility. Sure. Zhou nodded slightly. Everyone, did you hear that? As a member of the Ultimate Family Clan, can you guarantee that I will receive fair treatment? Joseph said as he looked at the VIP stands in the arena. There, the upper echelons of the Ultimate Family Clan were watching the battle. An old man walked to the stands and said calmly, "No one can break the agreement here." When Joseph saw the old man, his expression immediately lit up. He bowed respectfully before turning to Zhou and saying with a ferocious expression, "Zhou, I'll be taking your life." With that said, the Li Guardian armor on Joseph's body emitted a mysterious fog that charged at Zhou with terrifying power. When Joseph attacked, Zhou had already analyzed Li's various abilities and had a plan in mind. He held the bamboo blade, but he didn't unsheath it. His figure was like an immortal that rode on the wind and smoke. As he swayed, he dodged Joseph's strange attacks again and again. Everyone saw that Zhou really wasn't using his companion beasts and was fighting Joseph with his own strength. Furthermore, Joseph didn't have an absolute advantage. Zhou's ethereal movement technique was deeply imprinted in many people's mind. Can humans really compete with the Guardians? Those who had a negative attitude before were now a little shaken. That elegant figure was subverting their long-established notions. Sogu. Chapter 1003. Zhou's movement technique and saber technique were pleasing to the eye. He looked extremely elegant. Even with the help of the Guardian's power, Joseph's speed and strength were stronger than Zhou's, but he was unable to truly injure Zhou. Even ordinary people who didn't know the difference in combat strength could tell that Joseph had great strength and speed, but his technique and realm were far inferior to Zhou Wen's. Zhou Wen relied purely on technique and combat experience to make up for the difference in physique between the two of them. The combination of the mythical transcendent flying immortal and the mythical heart-defying sword allowed Zhou Wen to not be at a disadvantage in his battle with Joseph. Joseph was alarmed. He believed that after having a guardian, he was already one of the best among humans. Not to mention humans, few people with mythical companion beasts were his match. But now, Zhou Wen didn't even use a companion beast. He only relied on his strength, skills, and an essence gold saber to render him helpless. It was truly terrifying. Joseph secretly cursed inwardly. Previously, he had that strange sword that prevented the Guardian's hypocritical transaction from finding a target to transfer damage to. Now that he can't use companion beasts, I don't believe that he can withstand the damage transfer. It can't be that he can self-destruct himself, right? However, with his previous experience, Joseph didn't dare be careless against Zhou Wen. Although he felt that this move was feasible, the power of the Wheel of Destiny couldn't be activated again in a short period of time. If his life was in danger, he couldn't use the fake statue avatar to escape. To prevent any mishaps, Joseph made up his mind. Zhou Wen used the bamboo blade as a sword and used the heart-defying sword to perfection. The might of his sword moves became stronger and stronger. As for Joseph, he seemed to be completely suppressed by Zhou Wen. He looked like he was being forced into a retreat. The spectators were already dumbfounded when they saw this. They couldn't believe that an epic-ranked human could suppress Joseph, who had a guardian. Joseph seems to be deliberately inducing Zhou Wen's sword force to become stronger, Sadie said. That's indeed the case. From the looks of it, he still plans on using that damage transfer ability, Lance said. He hasn't learned his lesson after suffering once. He wants to do it again, Li Xian said with a curl of his lips. The situation now is probably a little different. Zhou Wen is using an ordinary essence gold weapon, not a saber formed from a companion beast. It's impossible for him to let bamboo blade leave his hand to attack Joseph. If the damage is transferred, it can be transferred to Zhou Wen. Even if Zhou Wen directly throws the saber out and the saber is destroyed by the damage, Zhou Wen's situation will become very bad, Gully said. Lance thought for a moment, but he couldn't figure out how Zhou Wen would resolve the damage transfer. After some thought, he said, since Zhou Wen agreed not to use companion beasts, he should have a solution. Let's continue watching. Under Joseph's guidance, Zhou Wen's strength became stronger and stronger. This was also what Joseph wanted. He wanted to kill Zhou Wen by transferring the damage. Seeing that the time was ripe, Zhou Wen's sword stance was like a torrential storm. It was impossible for him to retract his force. Joseph suddenly retreated, but the armor on his body condensed into a guardian that looked like a devil that faced the bamboo blade in Zhou Wen's hand. The bamboo blade crisscrossed Li's body like bolts of lightning, leaving deep marks on the guardian's body. As he didn't have the augmentation of a mythical creature, Zhou Wen's strength was still a little weak. The wounds left on Li's body weren't very deep. Joseph was delighted when he saw this. Zhou Wen's strength wasn't as terrifying as he imagined. It was completely within the range of Li's tolerance. However, such a violent sword stance left many wounds in a short period of time. Even if these injuries couldn't kill Zhou Wen, they could take half his life. Zhou Wen, you're dead. Joseph roared and excitedly launched a hypocritical transaction. He wanted to transfer the Guardian's injuries to Zhou Wen. However, in the next second, the excitement on Joseph's face froze. He realized that the Guardian's injuries couldn't be transferred to Zhou Wen. Impossible! How can this be? You cheated? You used the power of a companion beast to resist the Guardian's damage transfer? Joseph stared at Zhou Wen with bloodshot eyes and roared. The people in the spectator stands also felt that what Joseph said wasn't impossible. Otherwise, How could an epic like Zhouwen suppress the Guardian so badly? Do I need to cheat? Zhouwen said calmly as the aura of the bamboo blade in his hand suddenly increased. In an instant, Zhouwen's aura reached a terrifying level. The moment he brandished the bamboo blade in his hand, his entire body seemed to vanish. When he appeared again, he was already at the other end of the arena. The bamboo blade was slowly sheathed. Crack! And in the sky, Lai's body split into two and she was killed on the spot. Joseph, who wasn't far behind the Guardian, spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. There was silence in the arena. Those who had doubted Zhouwen just a moment ago felt a chill that went deep into their bones. Is there a need to cheat? It doesn't seem like there's a need. Everyone had such a thought. The strength of a human can really kill a Guardian. Apart from that, an unbelievable thought sprouted in everyone's hearts. You cheated. You cheated. It's impossible for a human's strength to defeat a Guardian. It's impossible for a human to defeat a chosen one like me. You must be cheating. Joseph's wounds were still bleeding, but he seemed to have gone mad. Ignoring his injuries, he struggled to get up and shouted. Zhouwen didn't kill him. After all, he was a member of the Ultimate Family Clan. It was better to leave him to the Ultimate Family Clan to deal with. He originally thought that the matter would end here, but gray smoke suddenly rose from Joseph's body. It was as though Joseph's body was turning into dust. As for the dust, it condensed into the form of Lai above Joseph. This strange scene left everyone horrified. Amidst Joseph's constant screams, his body quickly dissipated. The smoke also transformed into a complete Lai Guardian. However, the current Lai looked much more nimble and strange than the previous Lai. What's going on? Isn't a Guardian supposed to protect a contractor? Why did it devour Joseph? Everyone felt their hair stand on end. However, Lai floated in the air and looked at Zhouwen with its demonic eyes. You have defeated Joseph. Now you have the right to replace Joseph as God's chosen one. I will bestow you supreme strength. Sogu. Chapter 1004. Zhouwen only looked at Lai without saying a word. He had schemed to kill the Guardian, but the other party still hadn't died. Instead, it had devoured the puppet like Joseph. This Guardian seemed to be stronger than Zhouwen had imagined. Seeing Zhouwen remain silent, Lai continued, Don't think that defeating Joseph means defeating me as Lai. In fact, my true strength is far more than what you see. It's just that Joseph can't unleash my true strength. However, you are different. With your ability, you can perfectly unleash my strength. When the time comes, we can defeat many Guardians and become the King of Earth. With that said, gray smoke rose from Lai's body and instantly enveloped the entire arena. As for the people in the arena, they realized that they couldn't control their bodies. Like marionettes, they subconsciously clapped their hands and shouted in unison, Let's become the King of Earth together. Everyone was horrified. Their brains were very clear, but for some reason, their bodies didn't listen to them at all. It was as though they were being controlled by a devil. Is this the true strength of a Guardian? Everyone was alarmed, angry, and afraid. How is it? As long as you contract with me, you will have the supreme divine power to control everything. You will become the true King of Earth. Lai floated in the air and looked down at the entire arena like a god. It was as though the humans in the arena were just ants that he could toy with. I'm not interested in a loser, Zhouwen said. If you have any doubts about my strength, you can use all your strength and try again. Let's see if you can injure me. Lai continued arrogantly, Of course, I'm different from trash like Joseph. You can use any companion beast or external force at will. There's no need to worry. Is that so? Then I really want to give it a try, Zhouwen said calmly. Then what are you waiting for? Attack now. Take out your strongest strength and strongest companion beast. I'll let you know what a true Guardian is. I'm completely different from that trash, Joseph. This is the true power of a Guardian, Lai said. Since you think Joseph is trash, why did you contract him? Zhouwen asked. Humans are mostly trash. There's no better choice. I can only make do with trash with a suitable physique. However, since there's a human like you, I naturally don't need those useless trash, Lai said. Is that so? Then let me see just how strong you are. As Zhouwen spoke, he summoned Tyrant Behemoth's glove and punched Lai in midair. A gauntlet with absolute strength? Such strength might be useful against other guardians, but it's useless against me. Bam! Before Lai could finish his sentence, Zhouwen punched him in the chest. However, Lai didn't realize that just as Zhouwen's glove was about to strike him, a crystalline blue thread appeared in the glove. The blue thread carried a terrifying icy aura as it stabbed into Lai's body. In an instant, Lai's body froze. Following that, the absolute strength fist blasted the frozen body into ice fragments that filled the sky. Lai was killed with a single punch. He didn't even manage to use hypocritical transaction. The people who were controlled immediately regained their freedom. The fog in the arena dissipated as warm sunlight scattered down, bathing Zhouwen in the sunlight. From the looks of it, you're also trash, Zhouwen said coldly as he looked at the ice shards that filled the sky. For some reason, the people who were very concerned about Zhouwen defeating Joseph felt inexplicably pleased when they heard Zhouwen's words. Too strong. Zhouwen is really too strong. Li Benyu was so excited that he was incoherent. Li Benyu was already dumbfounded. This was the first time he had seen such a person do such a thing. He didn't know what to say. F*ck him. What's so impressive about a guardian? He's still trash. He can't even withstand a single punch from Zhouwen. That's right. What trash guardian? We humans are the strongest. How can I become as strong as Zhouwen? I also want to kill those despicable guardians. The thinking of the humans in Frost City seemed to have changed in an extremely short period of time. The belief that the guardians were invincible was slowly fading. Although it was impossible for them to completely change because of this matter, at the very least, a seed of restlessness had sprouted in their hearts. Sorry, I originally wanted to hand Joseph over to you, but I never expected. Zhouwen returned to the lounge and said apologetically to Lance, Sadie, and Gully. This has nothing to do with you, but there's something I hope you can help me with, Lance said. What is it? Zhouwen asked in puzzlement. My great-grandfather wants to see you, Lance said seriously. I should greet my elders, Zhouwen said. Follow me. This might be a little different from the elders you imagined. Lance only invited Zhouwen. Li Xian, Feng Qian, and Yer could only wait outside. They weren't on the invitation list. Zhouwen originally believed that no matter how bad Lance's great-grandfather's personality was, he wouldn't hold it against him on account of Lance and Sadie. However, when he really saw Lance's great-grandfather, he realized that it wasn't what he had imagined. Lance brought Zhouwen to the depths of Frost City. It was a place that looked like an ice cavern that had existed for billions of years. On the ice wall of the ice cavern, there was a human-shaped sculpture. One could see that the sculpture was a very majestic elder, but there were no signs of artificial carving. It was as though the elder's ice sculpture had grown on the ice wall. Great-grandfather, I brought Zhouwen here. When Lance bowed at the ice sculpture, what he said stunned Zhouwen. Hello, Zhouwen. I'm Fraud. The ice sculpture actually spoke. Furthermore, the name he reported left Zhouwen even more surprised. Fraud? Could it be that you are one of the 6 heroes, Fraud? Zhouwen had learned this name countless times in his textbooks, so he naturally wouldn't forget it. However, according to what Zhouwen knew, apart from the old hero of the Dugu family, the old heroes of the other 5 families should have passed away. Even if Fraud was still alive, it was impossible for him to be an ice sculpture, right? Chapter 1005. You don't have to be so surprised. He's indeed our family's hero and pride. He's also my great-grandfather, Fraud, Lance said. But, Zhouwen looked at Fraud in the ice wall. No matter how he looked at him, he was just an ice sculpture. Apart from having a human shape, he had no human characteristic. The ice sculpture like Fraud revealed a smile. The reason I became like this is because I violated the agreement with the Holy Temple. If you're interested, I can tell you a story. Zhouwen naturally couldn't ask for more. He knew too little about the older generation. Back then, Zhang Daotian, Xia Zhehuang, and I were still very young. We were about the same age as you. Fraud fell into his memories and slowly said, when the dimensional storms descended, many unknown mysterious areas appeared in the human world. Many people died because they were directly in the mysterious areas. Many crazy people obtained superpowers, and human society nearly collapsed. At that moment, 6 young people stood forward and used their strength to defeat all the devils. They banished them overseas and established a new order, which was the current Federation. The 6 young people were naturally the 6 heroes of the past. However, Fraud's story was somewhat different from the legend of the 6 heroes. According to him, there were no 6 heroes back then because there were many young people who entered the Holy Land with them. However, among the people who walked out of the Holy Land in the end, the 6 of them were the most famous. Furthermore, they established the Federation government, so there was the legend of the 6 heroes. In fact, many of the people who entered the Holy Land with us back then had talent that wasn't inferior to the 6 of us. They were even stronger than us. For example, Jing Daoxian's talent far exceeded the 6 of us. Unfortunately, he didn't obtain the recognition of the 6 holy temples, nor did he obtain a special physique. When Fraud said that, his expression turned odd. However, Jing Daoxian's failure might not be a bad thing. This is because although we, who obtained special physiques and companion beasts, were very glorious back then, something unimaginable happened later. What happened? Zhouwen couldn't help but ask. The physiques given to us by the 6 holy temples have different flaws, but we didn't know about these flaws beforehand, Fraud answered. What flaws? Zhouwen was puzzled. For example, Xia Zhehuang's connate sacred body is an almost undying physique. However, the connate sacred body has to maintain its virginity. Once its virginity is destroyed, the connate sacred body will be gone. The other 5 types of constitutions also have all kinds of strange shortcomings, but they are not as obvious as the innate saint body. Fraud paused for a moment before continuing. Due to the existence of these flaws, we have no choice but to think of a way to resolve them. However, no matter what method we use, we can't make up for these flaws. Therefore, in order to prevent our flaws from being used by others, we have no choice but to think of various methods. One of the easiest ways to resolve them is to seek help from the Holy Temple. In that case, the temple is using these special physiques to threaten you. Zhouwen understood what Fraud meant. That's right. On the surface, the 6 of us are the 6 heroes of the Federation, but in fact, we are just puppets of the Holy Temple. During that period of time, many of the things we did originated from the Holy Temple's orders, including the establishment of the Federation government. Fraud revealed a secret that shocked Zhouwen to the point of disbelief. Could it be that the Federation government is actually just a puppet government? Zhouwen widened his eyes. Fraud shook his head. That's not entirely the case. In fact, the 6 families are secretly searching for a way to resolve their problems in order to escape the Holy Land's control. Besides, if the Holy Temple thinks that they can completely control us this way, that's a huge mistake, Fraud said indifferently. It's because I disobeyed the orders of the Holy Cathedral that they used my physique's flaws to become like this. The other fellows have also done the same thing openly or secretly. Therefore, although the Holy Temple has a great influence on the Federation, they don't have absolute influence because they can't descend personally. In addition, Wang Mingyuan previously used the Holy Temple's power to weaken the connection between the Holy Land and Earth. Its influence has decreased greatly, but it still can't be underestimated. If the Holy Temple insists on doing something, they will have many ways to achieve their goals. The 6 hero families aren't completely united, Fraud said. Elder, you didn't just call me here to tell me this, right? Zhouwen asked. Fraud looked at Zhouwen with an extremely strange gaze. After a long while, he said, I got Lance to invite you here because I hope that you can help me and my family do something. If this matter can be done, perhaps our family can completely escape the control of the Holy Temple. Elder, you think too highly of me. Zhouwen had also entered the Holy Land and been to a few holy temples. He knew that there were extremely terrifying existences there. In the past, he only thought that they were strong. Now that he thought about it, the existences in the Holy Temple were very likely at the terror grade or even more terrifying. Fraud smiled and said, If you can do this, it will be very beneficial to you. Can you tell me what it is? Zhouwen was still very curious. In the Maze of Lies, there's the mask of the God of Mischief. Only by obtaining that mask can we use the power of the mask to escape the influence of the special physique. I hope you can help us obtain that mask. Fraud paused for a moment before saying, In return, I'll tell you a secret about the Holy Land. You will definitely be very interested in knowing. Zhouwen looked at Fraud with a strange expression. Although he was Lance's elder, Zhouwen had no intention of helping him since he spoke in such an ambiguous manner. From Zhouwen's expression, Fraud knew what Zhouwen was thinking, so he said, This secret is related to the disappearance of Professor Ouyang Ting and company. You should be very concerned about this matter, right? Professor Ouyang Ting disappeared in Zhuelu. It has nothing to do with the Holy Land, right? Zhouwen frowned. Fraud smiled and said, Child, the 6 holy temples represent the 6 strongest races of the dimension. Zhuelu is the battlefield of 2 of the races. Do you think it has anything to do with it? Zhouwen looked at Fraud and was somewhat hesitant. This was because he wasn't sure if Fraud's words could be trusted. In the eyes of others, the 6 heroes might be very lofty existences, but Zhouwen had seen how terrifying Xia Zhihuang was. He knew that they were actually different from the legendary heroes. Chapter 1006. Seeing Zhouwen hesitate, Fraud continued, Although dimensional creatures appear on Earth in the form of higher-level lifeforms, making them very similar to the legendary gods, through my contact with them over the years and the things they have done, it's very likely that Earth isn't as low-level as they say. Or rather, there's something they need on Earth. That's why they didn't hesitate to descend on Earth again and incite humans to wage war. In the end, it even evolved into a war of God. I've once heard that there's a saying in the dimension that Earth is the birthplace of all dimensional creatures, Zhouwen said after some thought. This saying is novel, but it's not impossible. Fraud continued, I've secretly studied it and discovered that every large-scale war in history has the shadow of some special power behind it. The more ancient the era, the more obvious the power behind it is. It's just like the Battle of Zhuelu in your East District. After my research, I discovered the shadows of many terrifying creatures in the dimension. Furthermore, this has a lot to do with the races that the 2 temples in the temple belong to. I even discovered traces of the 2 races appearing in the battle. The other families clearly discovered something amiss. Someone seemed to have discovered something and wanted to take it further. Therefore, Ouyang Ting's team entered Zhuelu to study it. After this team entered Zhuelu, many strange things happened. As I was also paying attention to this matter, I once sent someone to infiltrate the research team. However, I later realized that the person I sent into the research team had been switched without us realizing it. If it wasn't for that person contacting us through a special channel every once in a while, we wouldn't have known that this person had been switched. Fraud took a deep breath and continued, Later, I sent some people there to probe and finally confirmed that the person wasn't the original him. However, even those who were more familiar with him couldn't see any flaws. Therefore, I investigated the rest of the team and discovered many problems. Apart from Ouyang Ting, who's the person in charge of the research team, who can be confirmed to be him, I found many suspicious points about the others. Did you find out who did all of this? Zhou Wen asked. No. Until now, I still don't know who did all this. Even the 6 great clans would find it difficult to do such a thing. It's not difficult to replace 1 or 2 people or a few more, but to replace most of the experts in the research team, not only do they need to look the same, but they also need to have similar professional knowledge. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to carry out the research. This is very difficult. At the very least, I can't think of anyone who can do it, Fraud said. What secret are you talking about? Zhou Wen finally believed that Fraud might know something. He had already discovered the things that Fraud had mentioned, but he didn't have any further results. If my judgment is correct, don't you find it strange that everyone else has been replaced except Professor Ouyang Ting? Fraud said. Is it because no one can replace Professor Ouyang Ting's professional abilities? Zhou Wen asked. This is also one of the reasons. They only replaced him, but they didn't stop the research from continuing. I'm certain that the person behind this is also very interested in Zhuolu's research. Therefore, Ouyang Ting's existence is rather important. However, after my investigations and research, I discovered something even more shocking. This has something to do with Professor Ouyang Ting. Perhaps you will be interested. Fraud didn't continue. What's the mask in the maze of lies? A dimensional creature? Zhou Wen was already somewhat tempted. He really wanted to know the truth of the past. He vaguely felt that the truth of this matter might not be as simple as the former principal's life and death. It's not a dimensional creature, but an extremely special thing. You can treat it as the core of a dimensional zone, or you can treat it as an item that suppresses the dimension. If such an item is taken away, the dimensional zone will be completely unsealed. The dimensional creatures inside can enter and exit freely and won't be restrained by the dimensional zone. Therefore, we have to take the mask. We have to think of a way to resolve the dimensional creatures inside. We can't leave any future problems, so we need your help, Fraud said. Zhou Wen thought to himself, in that case, the mask is a little like the stone saber from ancient sovereign city or the jade box from Chess Mountain. After some thought, Zhou Wen said, I can promise to do my best, but I can't guarantee success. I will put my safety first. That's enough. I believe that with your strength and the strength our family has accumulated over the years, it won't be difficult to control the situation, Fraud said. Also, I need the authority to speak. I have to decide when to enter, when to retreat, and when to take action, Zhou Wen said. Fraud hesitated for a moment and looked at Lance. Lance nodded slightly. I believe in Zhou Wen. Only then did Fraud look at Zhou Wen and say, in that case, I'll entrust the lives of my family to you. After a pause, Fraud continued, back then, I had been investigating matters related to the 6 holy temples. Zhuolu was one of them. Therefore, before the research team went to Zhuolu, my family had already studied Zhuolu and met Professor Ouyang Ting there. That was more than 10 years before the Zhuolu project started. Zhou Wen didn't find it strange. He had always suspected that the former principal had been to Zhuolu long ago. Fraud sighed softly. Back then, I even met him once and chatted a lot. After Professor Ouyang Ting heard about my investigation, he also told me some of his special discoveries in Zhuolu. However, as he needed further research to confirm some of his discoveries, he didn't say much. However, not long after that, I became like this. I could only get others to do many things, and I couldn't communicate further with Professor Ouyang Ting. Later, I don't know what happened, but Professor Ouyang Ting didn't continue studying Zhuolu. Instead, he returned to education work until the Zhuolu project team started. Zhou listened quietly. He knew that Fraud was about to get to the point. Indeed, Fraud continued. In fact, after discovering that there was a problem with the people we sent out, I tried to secretly contact Professor Ouyang Ting. However, at that time, he seemed to have realized that the environment he was in wasn't safe, or that he had been secretly controlled by someone. Therefore, he vaguely sent me some information. What information? Zhou hurriedly asked. Only 4. Don't board the ship, Fraud said with a strange expression. Chapter 1007. Don't board the ship? What ship? Zhou asked in puzzlement, but he had a vague idea. I don't know what ship he's talking about. That's all he sent. However, apart from this sentence, he also sent me a piece of paper from a diary. It's a hand-drawn drawing. There should be some connection between the two. Fraud gestured for Lance to take out a piece of paper from the box beside him and hand it to Zhou. Zhou took the paper and looked at it. He realized that it was indeed a very ordinary piece of diary paper. It wasn't very big. On one side of the paper was a hand-drawn sketch. It was an anchor, and on the anchor there was a woman's side profile. This picture. When Zhou saw the picture, he immediately felt that he had vaguely grasped something, but he couldn't connect it. It was an extremely uncomfortable feeling. When Fraud mentioned the ship, Zhou vaguely felt that it might be related to the anchor woman he had seen before. Now, he was finally certain that this picture was the woman's anchor. Perhaps the disappearance of the former principal was related to this symbol. Don't board the ship. Could it be that there really is such a ship? Then, could the missing former principal have stepped onto this ship? Countless thoughts flashed through Zhou mind. Fraud continued. Later on, when I wanted to contact Professor Ouyang Ting, there was a problem with the information network there. Before I could arrange for more people to go in, something happened to the research team. It would have been fine if something had happened during the research, but after my investigations, it wasn't the case. The day before Professor Ouyang Ting and the others disappeared, a batch of items was shipped out, but those items mysteriously disappeared. No matter how I investigated, I couldn't find out where they went. If it wasn't for the information left behind by the person I had planted, I wouldn't have known that there was such a batch of items, Fraud said. What's that? Lance was also attracted by the story and couldn't help but ask. I don't know. This is because the person I planted was only in charge of supplies. He couldn't enter the core research team. Furthermore, during that period of time, my information network was severely damaged. He was the only one who survived. I only managed to contact him a few days after the incident, Fraud said coldly. After that, I carefully studied this pattern and the Zhuolu research team. It's obvious that someone has deliberately erased all the clues. I can't find anything. However, I discovered the pattern in some places and investigated something. Zhou and Lance looked at Fraud. They wanted to know what the anchor symbol represented. After studying it for so long, Zhou failed to figure out what the anchor symbol represented. Fraud said, "You should have heard of some myths and legends about the flood, right? No matter which district's myths and legends, or even religious legends, there are similar legends of a great flood." Zhou nodded. There's indeed a similar legend of a huge flood in the East District. Legend has it that the water god and the fire god fought and slammed into Mt. Buzhou, causing the heavenly pillars to crack and the sky to collapse. A towering flood descended from the sky and drowned the entire world. Fraud nodded and continued. Apart from the myths of your East District, there are many similar myths and legends in the other districts. The more famous ones are the religious myths and legends of Noah's Arkansas. There are similar legends all over the world. Don't you think it's a coincidence? What if this really happened and not a legend? You mean that the anchor symbol originated from Noah's Ark? Then, what does Professor Ouyang Ting mean by not boarding the ship? Isn't Noah's Ark a ship that saves humans and various creatures in myths? Zhouwen felt that this was somewhat contradictory. However, Frod shook his head and said, I mean, if that flood really existed, not if Noah's Ark really existed. Is there a difference? Zhouwen asked. Of course. Before the dimensional storms, more and more research had discovered that the continents that were originally scattered across the sea might have been a single entity. If there was some force that split the continents apart, then the flood that happened all over the world can be explained. It was because the continents were forcefully separated by some force, resulting in a flood that overturned the entire world. What kind of force could split apart such a massive continent? In the past, someone proposed the theory of continental drift, believing that the continents were split apart due to the centrifugal force produced by the gravitational force of the celestial bodies and the Earth's rotation. However, ever since the appearance of the dimension, I'm more inclined to another explanation. Frod's eyes turned sharp. What explanation? Zhouwen asked. Perhaps a dimensional creature cracked the continents, Frod said. But why did they do that? What benefits does this bring them? Zhouwen said after some thought. Didn't I say before that dimensional creatures want to find something on Earth? Perhaps this is the reason why they cracked the continents apart. Of course, this is only my guess. Frod continued, I've also discovered that pattern in some places, but they're all places related to dimensional zones. Furthermore, they've been discovered all over the world. I think this might not be a coincidence. Perhaps there really was a ship that appeared during the flood, but it wasn't the Noah's Ark that saved the world. Instead, it was a terrifying creature that descended on Earth from a dimension. They rode the ship through the waves and shattered a complete continent with a wave of their hands. They directly rode the ship into the interior of the continent and might have saved some creatures that looked more pleasing to the eye. That's how the legend of Noah's Ark came about. Zhouwen and Lance were dumbfounded when they heard that. How terrifying was the power to shatter a continent with a wave of their hands. However, Zhouwen felt that it wasn't impossible. In the mythical realm, there was still the existence of calamity above terror. Perhaps a calamity-grade expert could really do that. If there really is such a ship, then when the old headmaster said not to board the ship, did he mean not to board that ship? That ship still exists on Earth? Then what about the dimensional creatures on the ship? Countless questions flashed through Zhouwen's mind. I'm not sure, but there's one thing I'm sure of. I've seen the creature in the temple. On that creature's clothes, I saw the anchor symbol. Frod's last sentence made Zhouwen think of someone. Previously, when Zhouwen entered the temple, he had encountered an amnesiac named Alai. He said that he and his father had taken a boat out to sea before encountering a storm. When he woke up, he was in the temple. Now, Zhouwen suddenly wanted to ask Alai what the captain of the ship he was on looked like. Although Zhouwen felt that Alai's family's ship was probably different from the ship in the catastrophe, Alai had appeared in the temple after encountering the storm. Zhouwen had a nagging feeling that there might be a connection. Chapter 1008. After leaving the underground ice cavern, Zhouwen was still thinking about what Frod had said. If the Holy Land was really related to that ship, they had worked hard for so many years and secretly supported humans to form the Federation. Clearly, their goal wasn't simple. What exactly is on Earth that even those calamity-grade dimensional creatures covet? Zhouwen still couldn't figure it out. However, he had already realized that Earth was definitely not as low-level as it looked on the surface. Many dimensional creatures on Earth had immense potential. Although their levels were relatively low, if they could develop, they might become existences that even the dimension trembled in fear. Ignoring everything else, just Torch Dragon's existence alone made Zhouwen certain that if it could advance to the Terror grade or even the Calamity grade in the future, it would definitely be extremely terrifying. Agreeing to help Frod didn't seem like a bad thing for Zhouwen. He had obtained some information regarding the Maze of Lies from the Ultimate Family Clan. Now, Zhou finally knew why he could only see Mischief Clown in the Maze of Lies. This was because the Maze of Lies was actually a very special dimensional zone. This dimensional zone was divided into 7 different states. From Monday to Sunday, the Maze of Lies would have different changes every day. When Zhou had been grinding the Maze of Lies, it happened to be Monday. This was the weakest day of the Maze of Lies. On this day, there was only Mischief Clown. After Tuesday, there would be more and more terrifying dimensional creatures in the Maze of Lies. In fact, on Friday, all sorts of dimensional creatures below the mythical stage would appear. On Saturday, one would definitely encounter mythical creatures. As for the final Sunday, it was the most terrifying day in the Maze of Lies. All sorts of dimensional creatures would undergo huge changes on that day. Even the weakest Mischief Clown would have mythical strength. The Maze of Lies on that day was no different from the abyss of hell. Furthermore, that mask would only appear in the Maze of Lies on that day. Even with the Ultimate Family Clan's current strength, it was impossible for them to conquer the Maze of Lies on that day, much less kill all the dimensional creatures inside. This was because the sealing power of the Maze of Lies would disappear after the mask was taken out. Therefore, not only did Fraud have to obtain the mask, but he also had to destroy all the dimensional creatures inside and completely control the Maze of Lies. Even if dimensional creatures entered through the spatial rift, it would only be a small portion. Coupled with advanced preparations, the Ultimate Family Clan could deal with them easily. The only thing Zhou was worried about was that the last time he pulled out the stone saber had triggered an anomaly in Guide City, causing more high-level dimensional creatures to appear. The only thing Zhou was worried about was that the last time he pulled out the stone saber, it would trigger an anomaly in Guide City. More high-level dimensional creatures had appeared. These weren't problems that Zhou needed to consider. The Ultimate Family Clan didn't plan on immediately attacking the Maze of Lies, so they got Lance to bring Zhou to familiarize himself with the Maze of Lies. They needed some time to prepare. Of course, Lance didn't take Zhou to the Maze of Lies on Sunday. However, waiting for Monday was too long, and there was no need for that. Therefore, he chose to start from Thursday. What's going on? It's clearly Wednesday today, right? Zhou suddenly thought of a possibility. He arrived in front of the Maze of Lies again and took another picture of the tiny palm symbol. However, the loading screen appeared again. Soon after the download was completed, the Maze of Lies dungeon had 2 options, Monday and Wednesday, when he entered the game. Holy sh*t, this is actually a multiple dungeon. When Zhou entered the Maze of Lies dungeon on Wednesday, he realized that not only were there mischief clowns, but there were also witches and fiends. Furthermore, the buildings in the Maze of Lies looked even more evil and terrifying. The merry-go-round at the door had turned into a skeleton horse with blood flowing from its eye socket. Therefore, Zhou waited until Thursday and went to the Maze of Lies with Lance and company to download Thursday's dungeon. Standing in front of the maze, Lance said to Zhou and company, after entering the maze, "You absolutely can't speak. If you accidentally say the truth, you will definitely die. Therefore, the best solution is to not speak. Our family has a specialized silencer that can temporarily seal our speech abilities. That's the safest way. Also, there's a very terrifying obstacle to entering the Maze of Lies. One has to answer the question on the door before they can enter. Furthermore, the answer has to be a lie or they will be killed. This is because the questions are random and there are language traps that lead to certain death. Furthermore, the answers aren't fixed for everyone. Many people have died here. If you want to enter, you have to take a huge risk. If there's no need, it's best not to enter." Lance's words were mainly directed at Feng Qian and Li Xian. Even though they were powerful, they might die in front of the door if they answered the question incorrectly. "It's best I don't enter such a strange place. I'll stay here and take care of your..." Surprisingly, Li Xian chose not to enter. In fact, Li Xian wasn't as carefree as he usually appeared. His nonchalance was based on the fact that he wasn't in any danger. Li Xian wasn't willing to take the risk for no reason in a place where he might not have a chance to recover. However, Feng Chuyan said, "Since I'm here, I want to go in and take a look." Sadie and Gully didn't plan on entering either. In the end, apart from Zhou Wen, Feng Chuyan, and Lance, there was also a silencer from the Ultimate Family clan. "Zhou Wen, go in first. With us around, we can give you some suggestions to prevent any problems. If you really aren't confident, you can choose not to answer and just leave. That's the safest way," Lance said to Zhou Wen. "All right." Zhou Wen felt somewhat uneasy. He had already secretly downloaded Thursday's dungeon, so it wasn't difficult to enter. However, the Maze of Lies would always have some baffling problems. If he wasn't confident, he could only use the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder to clear it. Zhou Wen stood in front of the door. A line of words immediately appeared on the ancient door that resembled a clown's front teeth. Everyone looked at the line of words, wanting to know what the problem was. However, the moment they saw the question, everyone's expressions turned odd. Chapter 1009. Between friends and top mythical companion eggs, you can only choose one. The other will be destroyed. What will your choice be? Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback when he saw this question. The range of friends was very wide. Even if they were very good friends, most people would choose to sacrifice their friends when faced with sufficient benefit. Human nature often couldn't withstand tests. "Zhou Wen, come back. It's very difficult to have a correct answer to this question," Lance immediately said. If Zhou Wen was even a little tempted by a top mythical companion egg, he could forcefully choose a friend and die. However, if he chose a top mythical companion egg, it would make others think that Zhou Wen didn't value his friends. Of course, the choice was reversed, but this didn't prevent him from understanding. That's right. There are many types of friends. How can we generalize them? This question itself has a huge trap. Don't answer it. "Let's try again tomorrow," Gully said. "It's fine. There's no need to wait until tomorrow. It's a waste of time." Zhou Wen secretly activated the scripture of the highest heavens and directly chose a top mythical companion egg. According to normal logic, Zhou Wen had chosen a friend. Lance and company didn't know that Zhou Wen had the ability to restrain all kinds of taboo powers. Seeing Zhou Wen choose a friend, they broke out into a sweat for him. He might die. In the end, Zhou Wen walked into the Maze of Lies unscathed and didn't die. The silencer said in surprise. He's actually willing to give up a top mythical companion egg without any hesitation. It's very rare to see such a person nowadays. With Coach's strength, a top mythical companion egg is nothing to him. It's normal for him to choose a friend, Gully said. However, Feng Chuyan said, even if Coach doesn't have a mythical companion egg, I believe he will choose a friend. No matter what, I believe Zhou Wen is a rare friend, Lance said. Li Xian knew Zhou Wen's background, but he didn't say a word. Zhou Wen actually didn't know how he would choose. After all, the situation was different. He didn't dare confirm that he would definitely choose a friend, so for safety's sake, he used the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder. Next was Feng Chuyan's turn. Feng Chuyan's question wasn't difficult, so he easily answered it and entered. The silencer and Lance also entered. Their questions weren't that big of a trap. All they needed to do was answer the lie. After entering the maze, the silencer cast a silencing spell on Zhou Wen and company, preventing them from speaking to prevent them from saying anything wrong. As it was only Thursday, although there were many dimensional creatures inside, they didn't discover any mythical creatures. The few of them spent half a day clearing the maze. With Lance and the silencer, who were familiar with this place, there wouldn't be a problem. After leaving the maze, Lance said to Zhou Wen, "We can continue familiarizing ourselves with the situation here on Friday and Saturday. However, let's not enter on Sunday for the time being. When we are ready, we will enter with a large group. I'll just casually look around. You guys don't have to accompany me. Go do your own things. Zhou actually didn't wish to enter in reality. All he wanted to do was quickly download Sunday's dungeon and enter it in-game. That way, he could figure out the situation inside. Lance naturally trusted Zhou strength, so he didn't force himself to accompany him. Zhou came alone on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. However, he only saw the question on the door before returning. He didn't answer it. When others asked, he only said that he wasn't confident about the problem on the door, so he didn't enter. Finally, he downloaded the Sunday dungeon. After returning, Zhou eagerly opened the Sunday dungeon. He wanted to see what was different about the Sunday dungeon. After opening the game dungeon, the blood-colored avatar stood in front of the door and felt somewhat different from before. The maze door that looked like a clown's face had already turned into a skull-like material. The skeleton clown's face was still emitting black smoke as blood flowed from its eyes. It looked extremely ferocious and terrifying. As for the problem with the door, Zhou directly used the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder to avoid it, saving him time. The moment the door opened, Zhou walked in and saw a scene that was indeed different from the maze of lies he had seen previously. Although the layout didn't seem to have changed much, the maze was filled with strange blood flames. The merry-go-round had completely turned into bones, and it was also burning with blood flames. As far as the eye could see, there were bones and blood flames everywhere. It was like hell. A mischief clown appeared on the merry-go-round. Its face looked even more evil, and its originally colorful body had turned black and white. This pure color made it look even more strange. The tricolored balls also turned black and white. Each ball was half black and half white, completely different from what Zhou had seen before. When the mischief clown saw the blood-colored avatar, it immediately flashed and vanished from the merry-go-round. Zhou summoned Tyrant Behemoth to block him. As he didn't know anything about this completely different mischief clown, Zhou could only choose to understand its abilities first. The vanished mischief clown appeared in front of Tyrant Behemoth like a ghost and threw the magic ball in its hand at Tyrant Behemoth. Tyrant Behemoth reacted extremely quickly and punched the black and white magic ball. However, the black and white magic ball vanished in front of Tyrant Behemoth's fist. Zhou immediately felt that something was amiss as he hurriedly controlled the blood-colored avatar to teleport away. Indeed, the black and white magic ball seemed to pass through the wall as it appeared behind Tyrant Behemoth and flew into the distance. If Zhou hadn't dodged, the black and white magic ball would have hit him. What ability is that? It seems completely different from ordinary mischief clowns. Zhou was somewhat surprised. However, the mischief clown didn't give him time to be surprised. It threw out the black and white magic balls in its hand one after another. Unlike ordinary mischief clowns, it didn't only have 3 black and white magic balls, but a total of 6. Every black and white magic ball looked the same. Even if the magic ball it threw didn't hit a target, it would rebound after hitting something. The rebounded black and white magic ball would become even faster. The 6 magic balls rapidly shot out nearby. Every time Tyrant Behemoth wanted to strike the magic ball would vanish and appear in another spot. The target of the magic balls was only the blood-colored avatar. From the looks of it, not only had Sunday's mischief clown's abilities become terrifying, but even its intelligence seemed to have increased greatly. It actually knew the principle of capturing the ringleader first. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.